Chapter 501. At noon, Tan Xiao saw the happy Li Laoshan. What made Tan Xiao at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh was that Li Laoshan's extravagance was very big. There were 16 bodyguards in black suits and black sunglasses. They happened to meet him at the entrance of a hotel, attracting a lot of people's attention, thinking that they were shooting a movie. "Old brother Li, can't we keep a low profile?" Tan Xiao wore a casual outfit, a cap, and a pair of big black sunglasses. He dressed like this mainly because he was surrounded by countless people when he accompanied his aunt, Tang Min, to go shopping in the morning. After all, today was different from the past. First, there was the Demon City University's freshman welcoming party where he played the zither and sang. Later, there was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, making him look like a star. He was even more popular than a star now. From aunties in their 80s to teenagers, as long as they recognized Tan Xiao, they would salute him one after another. There were also countless people asking for autographs and photos. Li Laoshan grinned and said, "Brother Tang, I don't have any other choice. I'm afraid that some people will have crooked thoughts if I carry the fishbowl ancient sword. But you, how come you're so low-key? If it weren't for my keen eyesight and being very familiar with you, I wouldn't have been able to recognize you." Tan Xiao forced a smile and said, "I don't think I'm low-key enough. Ever since the video of me giving medical services at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital was posted on the internet, I've been suffering whenever I go out. People can recognize me no matter where I go. Now, I can't wait to go to H country and get my face properly plastic surgery." Haha, Li Laoshan burst into laughter and said, "I've also seen the video of you giving medical services at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. It's very good. Especially when she said that she wanted to donate money, it warmed my heart. This old brother of mine may not have any achievements in the medical field, but I do have a kind heart. Therefore, I also donated 1 million yuan to the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's fund. I must say, the fund column on the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's official website is really good. It's transparent enough, and it's enough to make the good people who donate feel relieved." Tan Xiao smiled bitterly and said, "Regarding the donation, I did a good deed unintentionally. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's talk about the underground auction. Where will it be held?" "The venue is very hidden, to the point that you can never imagine it," said Li Laoshan. "Come with me. There are less than 2 hours left until the auction. If we hurry, we should be able to get there before 2 o'clock. Yongding River." It was one of the 5 major river systems in the imperial capital, the largest of the 5 major river systems in the High River, and the largest river system in the city. The underground auction would be held on the Yongding River. "Old brother Li, are you mistaken? Are we really going to take this wooden boat to the underground auction?" At a certain section of the river bank, Tan Xiao asked in disbelief as he looked at the dozens of small wooden boats in front of him and the burly men in black suits with headphones. Li Laoshan grinned and said, "How about it? You didn't expect this, did you? Every time the Situ family held an underground auction, it would always amaze everyone. This year's new trick really didn't disappoint me. Did you see that? I know those people on the boat in front. They're also here to participate in the auction." Tang Xiao looked around and nodded, praising, "It's indeed novel and novel. These Situ family people are really imaginative. Let's go. Since we've come to the right place, let's go straight to the auction venue. I really want to see what kind of scene it is." Li Laoshan let out a faint smile and came to the boarding gate side by side with Tan Xiao, but they were stopped by the ship guards. One of the burly men checked the invitation given by Li Laoshan and then said, "Mr. Li, you can only take 3 people to board the boat at most." "I know." Li Laoshan nodded. After boarding the boat with Tan Xiao, he gestured to 2 of the bodyguards. Then, the group of 4 boarded the boat and rowed toward the distance of the river. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiao finally saw the scene of the auction venue. He looked at the middle of the wide river, where a platform half a meter high was temporarily built and surrounded by small boats. Each boat was tied with iron chains, with 2 layers of chains extending to the shore. "Old brother Li, I'm also speechless after seeing this scene." Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he shook his head and couldn't help but sigh. Li Laozhan, on the other hand, felt that it was quite novel. He chuckled and said, "It's indeed very interesting. Look at those boats. Many of them are somewhat familiar, and I even know some of them. That's right, we're late, so I'm afraid we'll be the last ones, right? But it doesn't matter since it won't affect our bidding. I just came here to widen my knowledge and experience." Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, "I also want to see you fight with that guy who wants to get your Yuchang sword and compete in terms of financial resources. I'm afraid I won't have much use for this auction." "That's right, if you don't have enough money for the auction, I can lend you some." "You're joking, Brother Tang." Li Laozhan couldn't help laughing and said, "The magnificent Tang Corporation may have made a lot of money recently, but we still need money in other places. Don't worry about it. I've prepared enough money this time. If it exceeds my budget, then the Yuchang sword will be sold at a high price. Are you really willing to part with it?" Tan Xiu's expression moved and he asked. "I'm a bit reluctant, but everything has its own value. If it exceeds that value, then the gains won't make up for the losses." Li Laozhan said. Tan Xiu gave him a thumbs up and praised, "Old brother Li, you're really a hero among men. It's a pity that there's no wine, else I'd definitely toast you." Li Laozhan let out a strange smile and said, "Who said there's no wine? I dare say that someone will definitely send it to us in less than 3 minutes. Do you believe me?" "Someone will send us wine?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Is it true or not?" Li Laozhan pointed to several rowing boats and smilingly said, "See that? Those boats should be delivering wine, fruit plates, and desserts to the guests. The clansmen of the Situ clan have one thing in common, and that is that they especially like to curry favor. They are very attentive when dealing with people. I heard that every time the underground auction is held, the guests will feel at home." Sure enough. A few minutes later, a small boat rowed to the side of Tan Xiu's boat. A stalwart man took a rope and fixed the boat on the iron cable. He then cupped his fists toward Li Laoshan's group of 4 and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Imperial Capital's auction. My Situ family is currently taking inventory of the items to be auctioned. If you also bring something you want to auction, you can get a registration form from me and then give it to me. After the valuation, I'll ask you whether you want to sell it or not." Li Laozhan took a rectangular wooden box from a bodyguard and handed it to the Situ family's stalwart man. He then filled in the information and signed the entrustment agreement with the other party. Then he took the tea, wine, fruit plates, desserts, and other things from the other party. The Situ family's arrangement is really good. However, I've heard about those big families in the imperial capital. But why haven't I heard of this Situ family? Tan Xiu waited until the other party left and then asked in a low voice. The Situ family is, after all, a member of the occult sect, and they don't have many family members, said Li Laozhan with a smile. Even if this family has huge wealth and a deep network of contacts, they don't involve themselves in politics after all. Each and every one of their family members is very low-key, so they don't have any fame. However, don't underestimate this family. I dare say that those medium-sized families in the imperial capital are on par with the Situ family. They're that powerful? Tan Xiu was surprised. A family that has been operating for 100 years may have a very deep heritage, said Li Laozhan. But the Situ family has been operating for more than 100 years. I heard that during the age of turmoil, the Situ family tried their best to hide themselves and greatly avoided the family's losses. Later, the torrent of reform also didn't have much impact on their family. Therefore, don't underestimate the Situ family. Having said that, Li Laozhan lowered his voice and continued, Brother Tang, you're a martial arts practitioner, so you should know that these families are not only interested in wealth and the power to control their family members, but also the strength and number of martial artists in the family. I heard that the Situ family is also a martial arts family, and each of their family members is a top-notch expert. The member of the Situ family who just delivered the things to us has a good skill. Tan Xiu nodded. Old brother Li, I'm afraid that your skill is slightly inferior to that person. Li Laozhan awkwardly said, Don't mention my meager strength, Brother Tang. It's too shameful. Usually I can only barely deal with a few punks. If I encounter a real expert, They can knock me down with just 3 punches and 2 kicks. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile. Time fleeted by, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 2 o'clock. As more and more boats arrived, the number of guests who came to participate in the auction had exceeded more than 100. In other words, there were at least more than 100 guests who came to participate in the auction. It's almost about to start. Li Laozhan saw a woman in a red windbreaker and red leather boots step on the platform built in the middle of the river. He then touched Tan Xiu's arm and said. As Tang Xiu looked around, his expression suddenly turned blank. How come it's her? Tan Xiu raised his arm and rubbed his eyes. He found that he was not mistaken. The woman in red was Ouyang Lulu. However, Tang Xiu's surprise had yet to end, as another person appeared out of his expectation. Tan Xiu was very familiar with this person. She was someone he once hated and was hostile to, someone he could not wait to beat up. Brother Tang, my enemy is here. Li Laozhan touched Tan Xiu and said in a low voice. Chapter 502. On the boat that arrived late, there were also 4 guests. 2 of them were obviously dressed as bodyguards, while the other 2 were a man and a woman. The man had a shaved head and wore a thick glittering gold chain around his neck. There was a faint smile on his chubby face, while the woman had a beautiful appearance and was dressed in professional attire. Tan Xiu's eyes only lingered on the bald middle-aged man for a moment before falling on the woman because she had a deep relationship with Tan Xiu. Wang Daoyuan, the boss of Goldman Sachs Construction Materials in the imperial capital. Li Laozhan squinted his eyes and looked at the approaching man. He gently touched Tan Xiu's arm and whispered. Tan Xiu didn't care about the identity of the other party. What he cared about was why Sujinin appeared beside Wang Daoyuan and dressed in professional attire. The boat approached. Wang Daoyuan, who was sitting in the boat, took out a cigar box from his bosom and took out 2 cigars from it. When the 2 boats were only 2 meters away from each other, he threw one to Li Laozhan and put it in the corner of his mouth while looking at Sujinin. What made him raise his brows was that his little secretary didn't look at him, but looked at the young man beside Li Laozhan with an ugly expression. It's him? Wang Daoyuan's expression moved and quickly recognized Tan Xiu's identity. He immediately took out another cigar and threw it to Tan Xiu, saying with a smile, Brother Li, I didn't expect you to know Divine Dr. Tang. I may be a boorish man, but the great name of Divine Dr. Tang is like a thunderclap piercing my ears. Tan Xiu caught the cigar and nodded to Wang Daoyuan. His eyes then fell on Sujinin again and indifferently said, Go home if you're crazy enough outside. I'll keep the house in Star City for you. It's the same key as before. A bit of hatred surged in Sujinin's eyes as she angrily shouted, We don't need your pity. The winner is the king and the loser is the thief. That house is yours, not ours. You still remember that your surname is Su? Tan Xiu snorted coldly. If you haven't forgotten your ancestors, find some time to go back to the Su family village to see your grandmother. Xiang Fei has been doing well recently. At least he understands filial piety now. Sujinin said angrily, It's none of your business whether I understand filial piety or not. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He turned his head and glanced at Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan, who had strange expressions on their faces, and lightly said, Both of you, there are unpredictable winds and clouds in the heavens, and people have their own fortunes and misfortunes. Life was never easy. It was better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Regardless of whether you get what you want today, I hope that you can live in peace in the future. The auction is over. I'll be the host tonight. I hope the 2 of you will do me the honor. Li Laozhan instantly understood that the reason why Tan Xiu said that was probably because of his batch of steel. He nodded slightly and looked at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan squinted his eyes and smilingly said, Since Divine Dr. Tang said so, I naturally can't refuse. As the local tyrant of the imperial capital, let me be the host tonight. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, I must treat you to this dinner tonight. Consider it as me helping you resolve a small conflict. Don't worry. I'm a member of the Tang family, so I have the money to eat and drink. A member of the Tang family? Wang Daoyuan stared blankly for a moment before his pupils suddenly shrunk. His plump body instantly straightened up and said with a smile, Since Brother Tang is treating me, then I'll definitely bring the god's nectar that I obtained with great difficulty. A smile appeared on the corner of Li Laoshan's mouth as he said, Brother Daoyun, since Brother Tang is treating us, then the god's nectar must be brought by him. In any case, none of us has more god's nectar than him. Brother Tang can get a lot of god's nectar through his connections? Wang Daoyuan was surprised. An angry look flashed in Sujinin's eyes as she sat next to Wang Daoyuan. But after hearing Wang Daoyuan's words, she lowered her voice and said, Boss, he's the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss. What? Wang Daoyuan's complexion changed and he looked at Tan Xiao with disbelief. With his keen hearing, Tan Xiao could naturally hear Sujinin's words easily. He then lightly smiled and said, Yes, I'm the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss. With a shocked expression, Wang Daoyuan deeply observed Tan Xiao a few times and sighed. Every generation has its own talents, and each of them has been in the limelight for decades. Brother Tang is so young, yet your business is so prosperous. You're really not simple. I'll thicken my face and follow Brother Tang to have a good drink tonight. As for Brother Li's steel, I'll return it to him early tomorrow morning. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile. Li Laoshan cupped his fists and smilingly said, Brother Wang, we're doing the same business. I hope we can get closer and cooperate more in the future. That's for sure, said Wang Daoyuan with a smile. Having said that, he turned to look at Sujinin and silently pondered the relationship between this little secretary of his and Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao was an intelligent man. Upon seeing Wang Daoyuan's expression, he lightly smiled and said, Brother Wang, since this insensible cousin of mine is working in your company, I hope you can take care of her in the future. If she doesn't perform well one day, you don't need to retain her for my sake. Just drive her back and I'll arrange something for her to do. It's none of your business. Sujinin glared at Tan Xiao. Wang Daoyuan's heart moved. A smile immediately covered his face as he cupped his fists and said, Brother Tang, rest assured. Yening is in my company, so I won't let her suffer any losses. Originally, Wang Daoyuan had planned to sleep with this capable and hard-working secretary of his. But now that he knew about her relationship with Tan Xiao, he immediately dispelled the idea. If Tan Xiao was only the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital and the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation, perhaps he would only dread him, but he wouldn't be afraid. But Tan Xiao also had another identity. He was a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital. This was something he didn't dare to provoke. Sujinin looked at Wang Daoyuan and then at Tan Xiao. Her heart was full of bitterness. She originally thought that with her recent diligence and ability, she would be able to get a good income in the Goldman Sachs construction material company in the future and get a good development. Even if she left the Goldman Sachs construction material company in the future, she could still have a lot of capital and recreate the glory of her Su family in the past. At that time, she would definitely stand in front of Tan Xiao and let him know that her family was not someone he could bully. If possible, she would even make trouble for Tan Xiao and make him regret what he had done to her parents. However, at this moment, she realized that she and Tan Xiao were not on the same level. Even if she worked herself to death in the future, it would be very difficult for her to reach his height. After all, the boss in front of him was full of pride and arrogance, yet his behavior toward Tan Xiao was almost flattering, and his attitude was too low. No, I can't give up. Sujinin clenched her fists and coldly glared at Tan Xiao before she moved her eyes away. At this time, on the platform built in the middle of the river, Ouyang Lulu nodded to a row of pretty girls holding trays behind her. She then picked up the microphone on the table, looked around and said with a smile, "Welcome to the 181st Imperial City Auction, everyone. I'm honored to be invited by the Situ family to preside over today's auction. I'm Ouyang Lulu from Jingmen Island. It's time for the auction to begin. Everyone who has come to participate in this auction is a big shot, and your time is very precious. Therefore, I won't take up any more of your time. I hope that everyone will be able to purchase the items that you are satisfied with in this auction. I hereby announce the commencement of the 181st Realm Imperial Capital Auction. The first auction item is the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. It's a symbol of the highest authority during the Qin dynasty and is also a national treasure of China. Its starting bid is 100 million, and each bid increment must be no less than 1 million. The bidding begins now. As Ouyang Lulu's voice faded away, countless people on the hundreds of boats who came to participate in the auction looked shocked. They never thought that the first auction item would be a national treasure like the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal. It must be known. In general auctions, although the first item would be the jackpot and wouldn't be too inferior, the finale would usually be the last 3 items, or even the last one. Could there be something more precious than the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal in this auction? 110 million, 120 million, 150 million? Indeed, the guests who were eligible to participate in this imperial capital auction were all big shots with status and wealth. Tan Xiu heard from Li Laohan that those who were eligible to participate must be recommended by 2 people who had participated in the auction, and their wealth must be more than 1 billion. Each big shot could only bring up to 3 people to participate. Because of this, the auction of the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal led to many people competing to bid, causing the price of the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal to rise. Tan Xiu shook his head. He didn't have much interest in the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal. The purpose of coming here was to help Li Laohan and Wang Daoyuan resolve the conflict, while at the same time protecting the Yuchang sword brought by Li Laohan from being robbed by others. However, Tan Xiu still wanted to see what was so special about the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal for it to have a starting bid of 100 million. When he looked over and saw the bronze seal, he couldn't help but secretly sigh at the strangeness of people's hearts. Although it was a golden collection in a chaotic world, it didn't help him. Spending a lot of money to buy it was completely a quirk. Tan Xiu suddenly raised his brows. He keenly felt that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth seemed to be a bit richer than before, and a special aura fluctuation seemed to have descended out of thin air. What's going on? Tan Xiu looked around. After seeing that there was no special situation with his body, he instantly released his spiritual sense, covering a radius of 200 to 300 meters. 2 seconds later, Tan Xiu's spiritual sense observed that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was slowly rushing toward the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal in front of Ouyang Lulu. The special aura fluctuation was also caused by the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal. This seal, Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment. His spiritual sense instantly shrouded the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal and slowly penetrated inside. There will be 3 updates today, seeking monthly votes to support. Chapter 503. The Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal was placed on the table in front of Ouyang Lulu. The bronze seal didn't seem to have been eroded by time as it still looked bright and clean. At this moment, as a strand of divine sense penetrated the seal, the space that appeared out of thin air inside was like a monstrous tidal wave that instantly swallowed that strand of divine sense. Puff! Sitting on the boat, Tan Xiu used his divine sense to investigate the Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal. His pupils instantly shrunk as his complexion turned pale, and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. At the side, Li Laohan turned his head. After seeing Tan Xiu's appearance, his complexion greatly changed. He quickly supported Tan Xiu's arm and hurriedly asked, "Brother Tang, are you all right?" Tan Xiu's eyes were fixated on the Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal as if he didn't hear Li Laoshan's question. At this moment, a storm was set off in his heart. He didn't expect that the Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal would form a hollow world inside, and there was an enormous power of providence inside that made one's hair stand on end. The power of providence was a very mysterious existence. It was ethereal, invisible, and traceless. Yet, it constantly affected every grass, every tree, every person, and every matter in the world. Every one of them had the power of providence. Those who were lucky would have more power of providence, while those who were unlucky would have less power of providence. Every country also had its own power of providence. The prosperity of a country meant that it had great providence, while the decline of a country meant that it had little providence. Providence. It represented a part of the heavenly Tao and affected the trajectory of all things. With providence, a flood of good fortune would fill the heavens. With providence, a country would be safe and sound. When Tan Xiu was in the immortal world, He had been to countless countries and continents. He had experienced the rise and fall of countless dynasties and obtained countless treasures. But he had never seen or heard of anything that could contain the power of providence. He never thought that there was some one-sided news from the God realm that said that when the power of providence reached a certain level, it could form a tangible form like a stream of water. Boundless power of providence that's like an ocean. How much providence does one have to possess in order to form such a thing? Tan Xiu's shaken heart could not calm down for a long time. At this moment, he looked at the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal with a burning gaze. Got it. He had to get it. No matter how great the price. Having obtained some information about the divine realm, he knew very well how precious the power of providence was. Even in the divine world, this item was something that countless true gods dreamed of obtaining. Although Tan Xiu still didn't know what the power of providence was used for. 280 million, 300 million, 310 million. The price continued to climb. There were at least 10 great figures who were interested in the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal. However, even though he had a lot of money, he was still very cautious in increasing the price. Every time he increased the price, the amount was not very high. 1 billion. On the boat, Tan Xiu picked up Li Laoshan's bidding card, raised his hand, and said in a deep voice, "Hua." On the hundreds of boats, there were hundreds of rich and powerful big shots. Their eyes fell on Tan Xiu. Most of them recognized Tan Xiu's identity. He was the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Therefore, whether it was because Tan Xiu's bid was too high, or because they didn't want to offend Tan Xiu, the young divine doctor, the number of bidders suddenly disappeared by 90%. On the platform in the river, Ouyang Lulu, the host, immediately felt happy when she heard the bid of 1 billion. However, the familiar voice made her curious. Following everyone's gaze, she looked at the source of the bid. Disbelief instantly appeared in her eyes. How could it be Tan Xiu? Ouyang Lulu raised the back of her hand and rubbed her eyes. After confirming that she was not seeing things, her beautiful face that could topple cities suddenly revealed a brilliant smile like a flower. 1 billion. 2 billion. 21 billion. The bidding stopped for a few seconds before it sounded again and again. However, the number of bidders had decreased by 7 or 8 times, with only 3 or 4 people still bidding. Tan Xiu raised the card in his hand again and shouted, 2 billion. Hua. The crowd was in a commotion. The guests on each boat whispered to each other. Divine Dr. Tang seems to be determined to get this Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal. He even dares to bid 2 billion. Does he really have that much money at such a young age? Divine Dr. Tang and Li Laoshan are together? Isn't this Li Laoshan too much to help Tan Xiu? He actually took out 2 billion for him to squander? Could it be that Li Laoshan's closest friend is sick? Oh my! What a big deal! I thought this Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal would sell for at most 1.8 billion. I didn't expect that Tan Xiu would raise the price so crazily. Could it be that he's working for the Situ family? Forget it. Tan Xiu is, after all, a divine doctor. Whose family doesn't have headaches and fever? If we have a bad relationship with him now, he won't have to refuse if we ask him for help later. I don't think this price is worth it. Forget it. Amidst the discussion, no one bid again. On the platform, Ouyang Lulu took the microphone and smilingly said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I really didn't expect that my sweetheart would come here today. He even has the courage to spend 2 billion to bid for the Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal. I believe in his vision. This Qin Emperor's imperial treasure seal is absolutely a great thing. Is there anyone else who wants to compete with my sweetheart? If not, then I'd like to thank all of you for saving a lot of money for my sweetheart." As her voice faded away, the hundreds of big shots on the hundreds of boats roared with laughter. Many of them even loudly ridiculed Ouyang Lulu. However, Ouyang Lulu's expression didn't change. She kept cupping her fists to everyone and repeatedly nodded to express her gratitude. On the boat at the back, Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at Ouyang Lulu's flower-like smiling face, as well as the jeering crowd around. He knew that Ouyang Lulu was like a wild horse with a fiery temperament and an incomparably heroic temperament. But saying this now was simply touching a sore spot. Li Laoshan's laughter was very loud. He grabbed Tan Xiu's shoulder and loudly laughed. "Brother Tang, you're really lucky with women. I've long heard about this little princess of the Ouyang family. She's as arrogant as a queen and bold enough to cover the sky. But I didn't expect that she's more forthright than I thought. She even dares to announce the relationship between you two in public. What a blessing! What a blessing!" A smile hung on the corner of Wang Daoyan's mouth as he said, "That's right. You're really lucky with women, Brother Tang. I didn't expect that you could meet a confidant in this auction. When you get married, this big brother will definitely give you a big gift." "Two big brothers, please don't listen to Ouyang Lulu's nonsense," said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. "We're friends, purely friends." "Shameless." Sujinin rolled her eyes at Tan Xiu and muttered in a low voice. Although Tan Xiu heard it, he was too lazy to argue with her. He directly pretended that he didn't hear it. He then looked at Ouyang Lulu and loudly said, "Hurry up. If no one wants to compete with me, quickly announce that the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal is mine." Ouyang Lulu took the microphone and said with a charming smile, "It seems that our Tan Xiu can't wait any longer. Since no one else wants to compete with him, this Qin Emperor Imperial Jade Seal will belong to our family. However, I haven't married into the family yet, so I don't have the financial power yet. So I can only ask the staff to pay for it. Next, let's auction the second item." Amidst the laughter of the audience, the auction of the second item began. More than a dozen items were auctioned one after another. The prices were not very high, and the highest item was only sold for tens of millions. Tan Xiu had already traded with the Situ family's members who came by boat. After he transferred the money through the online bank, he naturally got the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. "Brother Tang, this Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal is indeed a treasure handed down from generation to generation. But you don't need to spend 2 billion to buy it, do you?" Li Laoshan came over and looked at the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal in Tan Xiu's hand and asked. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "Money can't buy what I like. Since I've taken a fancy to this item, I think it's worth it no matter how much money I spend." Li Laoshan raised his thumbs up and praised, "Brother Tang, you're a man of temperament. I like this character of yours. Money can't buy what I like. It's definitely a wise saying." Wang Daoyuan, who was on the boat next to him, also nodded and praised, "That's right. One must live a free and unrestrained life in this world. Buy what one likes and do what one is happy about. Brother Tang may be young, but your thoughts are more thorough than ours. I admire you." "You're overpraising me, big brothers," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Sujinin was speechless toward Tan Xiu's performance. In her opinion, Tan Xiu's behavior was just a wastrel. Despite her deep resentment toward Tan Xiu, she was still somewhat distressed about the money. It was 2 billion. She was already complacent when her Su family had tens of millions in assets. But now, she didn't expect that Tan Xiu would be so rich to this extent. It must be known. Half a year ago, Tan Xiu was still a poor and foolish student. Not only was his family poor, but he also had a silly character. In less than half a year, he had unexpectedly undergone earth-shaking changes, which she couldn't figure out. However, she also faintly regretted that she treated Tan Xiu so badly in the beginning. If the relationship between the two families could be better, it would be a great fortune for the Su family after Tan Xiu had the ability. Especially when Tan Xiu was actually a descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital. If her family knew about this in the past, perhaps they wouldn't have treated Tan Xiu and her aunt, Su Lingyun, coldly and humiliated them, but would have flattered them instead, right? This is what a fucking human heart is like. A bitter and astringent feeling arose in Sujinin's heart as she silently lowered her head. Although she still had a lot of hatred toward Tan Xiu, she felt more regret and a heavy reflection. Chapter 504. The auction progressed very slowly, and many items were sought after by many people. Tan Xiu didn't participate anymore. He sat quietly beside Li Laoshan and played with the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal in his hand. He really couldn't figure out why this ordinary-looking seal made of bronze contained such an enormous amount of power of providence. However, since he couldn't figure it out, he was too lazy to think about it. While he was playing with the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal, he would occasionally observe Sujinin. Although he didn't like Sujinin, she was his cousin after all. If she could repent like her brother, it would definitely be a pleasant surprise for his mother. 3.5 hours later, it was already 5:30 p.m. The auction was coming to an end. Due to Tan Xiu's mediation, Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan gave up on the auction of the Yuchang sword and the other ancient sword. After paying the Situ clan a penalty fee, they took back the two swords. On the platform in the middle of the river, Ouyang Lulu was in high spirits. A blue and white porcelain vase made from the Ming Dynasty's official kiln was auctioned off. She took the microphone and smilingly said, "Time flies. I never thought that the auction would come to an end so soon." Next, there were only 3 items left. I believe that these 3 items are definitely rare treasures. Whoever can obtain them would be extremely lucky. The next item to be auctioned is a hairpin made of a special material. Because it has its name carved on it, it is called the 9 Phoenix hairpin. The 9 Phoenix hairpin was very special. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was magical. Let me explain it to everyone. First, its material is special and extremely hard. The owner of the 9 Phoenix hairpin, who entrusted the auction to auction it, used a laser to cut it, but he couldn't damage it at all. Secondly, the wearer can feel the magical effect of being warm in winter and cool in summer. Can you believe it? It's just a hairpin, but it can make people feel cool in the hot summer and warm in the cold winter. Having said that, Ouyang Lulu looked at the pairs of eyes widened and incredulous expressions of the guests and loudly said, "That's right. What I said is all true. I wore the 9 Phoenix hairpin before, and it made me feel very comfortable." The credibility of the organizer, the Situ clan, is also unquestionable. Now, I announce that its starting bid is 20 million, and each bid increment must be no less than 1 million. After saying that, she looked at the crowd below. 20 million. 21 million. The 2 rich women who had just arrived quoted almost at the same time. On the boat, when Tan Xiu heard the words, 9 Phoenix hairpin, from Ouyang Lulu's mouth, his body slightly shook for a moment. When his eyes fell on the hairpin, he immediately stood up. Although his actions had attracted the attention of many people, everyone still focused on the auction. 100 million. Tan Xiu said resolutely. Instantly, the expressions on the faces of the 2 wealthy women changed. Anger appeared in their eyes. Yang Lan, the big boss of the Biyuan Group, had close to 10 billion yuan in assets and countless businesses. It could be said that her net worth had squeezed into the circle of the second-tier rich in the country. Most importantly, she was only 40 years old this year, and this family fortune was all earned by her own hard work. When she saw the 9 Phoenix hairpin, she was attracted by the golden hairpin and liked it even more. Therefore, she had made up her mind to buy it even if she had to spend a lot of money. But who would have thought that someone would suddenly appear out of nowhere, and this person turned out to be the famous young divine doctor, Tan Xiu? She knew that Tan Xiu was rich. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bought the first item in the auction for 2 billion yuan. However, she was determined to get the 9 Phoenix hairpin. 200 million. An indifferent voice came out of her mouth. 500 million. Tan Xiu bid again. His bid also caused a commotion among the people present. Yang Lan looked at Tan Xiu, stood up and said, "Divine Dr. Tang, I'm very curious. You're a dignified man, so why do you want to snatch this 9 Phoenix hairpin from a woman like me?" "This 9 Phoenix hairpin was originally mine," said Tan Xiu. "I gave it to a junior, but she lost it. Now, it shouldn't be a problem for me to buy it back, right?" "It's yours?" Yang Lan frowned. After a moment of silence, she gritted her teeth and said, 1 billion. "I'll give up if you can come up with more than 1 billion. 1 billion. Tan Xiu said resolutely. Yang Lan forced a smile and shook her head as she slowly sat down. In the end, the 9 Phoenix hairpin was obtained by Tan Xiu. When he took the 9 Phoenix hairpin in his hand, a complicated expression appeared in his eyes for a long time. This 9-phoenix hairpin was indeed refined by him. It was even a gift he gave to his beloved Xue Qingqing, a top-grade immortal artifact. He couldn't figure out how this thing appeared on Earth and was even obtained by someone else. However, he already had a faint guess in his heart that this matter should be related to Gu Yan. Now that he had bought the 9-phoenix hairpin, he would wait for Gu Yan to wake up and ask her the reason. "Brother Tang, was this 9-phoenix hairpin really yours?" Li Laoshan leaned over and curiously asked. "That's right." Tan Xiu nodded. "Not only is it mine, but I also made it myself. It's just that there are some things I can't figure out, so I bought it now. I'll slowly understand some things later." With a strange expression, Li Laoshan said, "It seems like there's a story behind it, no?" Tan Xiu smiled indifferently and said, "There's indeed a story behind it, but it's a private matter." Li Laoshan nodded and no longer talked about this topic. After all, it was not convenient for him to ask about Tan Xiu's private matter. He was just curious that Tan Xiu could actually make a hairpin. Moreover, the craftsmanship was so exquisite. Tan Xiu didn't have much interest in the second auction item. Although the auction price was also hundreds of millions, it had nothing to do with him. On the auction stage, Ouyang Lulu's expression was a bit complicated. She knew that Tan Xiu had something weighing on his mind and even buried a big secret in his heart. Yet he unexpectedly spent a lot of money to buy a hairpin today, which made her feel sour inside. After all, he was a man and didn't need a hairpin, so this hairpin must be related to a woman. The last item is the dragon seeking plate. The organizer of the auction once told me that I'm not allowed to explain the dragon seeking plate during the auction. Therefore, I'll directly announce its base price, 100 million, and each increment must be no less than 10 million. Now, let the bidding begin. After Ouyang Lulu finished speaking, she picked up a 20 to 30 centimeter compass-like object. Dragon seeking plate? What's that? The finale turned out to be this inexplicable thing? What's its origin? What function does it have? What the hell is the Situ family doing? Is this thing more precious than the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal? Ridiculous! More than half of the hundreds of rich people present were talking about it. However, when the name of the dragon searching plate was announced, 20 to 30 elderly people on the hundreds of small boats stood up. Even though the boats were rocking, they all stood perfectly straight. Their eyes were filled with passion as they stared unblinkingly at the dragon searching plate. A small magic tool? Tan Xiu raised his brows. He was a bit surprised. It had been some time since he returned to Earth, but he had hardly seen a magic tool. Through his perception, he found that this magic tool had the function of seeking dragons and exploring caves. It was definitely a treasure in the eyes of those who dabbled in feng shui. "I bid 200 million, 300 million, 500 million, 1 billion. The price of the dragon seeking plate skyrocketed. In just 4 to 5 minutes, the price had been raised to 2 billion. None of the bidders increased the price by less than 100 million. Li Laoshan, who was sitting next to Tan Xiu, was dumbfounded as he looked at those old men with different expressions. He gently touched Tan Xiu and asked in a low voice, "What's going on, Brother Tang? Who are these people? I've been paying attention to them before. Many of them have never bid for an item in this auction. They're just here to be bystanders. But now, they're competing with each other for some unknown item. Even I'm afraid of the amount of money they're spending. What's going on here?" The dragon seeking plate is used to find spiritual veins, ominous and spiritual caves, Tan Xiu said lightly. It's very easy to use it to explore ancient tombs. This thing is very precious in the eyes of those who dabble in feng shui. It's almost as precious as their lives. "You mean they're all feng shui masters?" Li Laoshan was shocked. "I don't know." Tan Xiu shook his head. Li Laoshan gulped and no longer spoke. While he was talking with Tan Xiu, the price of the dragon-seeking plate was raised again to 3 billion. "Old Ghost Zhu, do you really want to compete with me?" An old man looked at the old man who bid 3 billion and angrily asked. "I'd rather go bankrupt and lose everything for the dragon-seeking plate," said the old man addressed as Old Ghost Zhu resolutely and decisively. "Fine, fine, fine. You win." The old man pointed to Old Ghost Ju and finally sat down with an unwilling expression. Old Ghost Ju then looked at the other two old men who were still trying to compete with him and said in a deep voice, "You can increase the price as much as you want, but I must get this dragon-seeking plate no matter how much you bid. We've known each other for many years and you should know how important this dragon-seeking plate is to me." The two old men exchanged glances and one of them unwillingly said, "I'll bid 1 billion. I'll give up if your bid is higher than this number." 2 billion. Old Ghost Ju said again. The two old men fell into silence for a moment and then sat down. They also hoped to get the dragon-seeking plate, but they also knew that they couldn't compare with Old Ghost Ju in terms of financial resources. They even knew that this dragon-seeking plate was the heirloom of the Ju family more than 200 years ago. Compete? They could compete for it. If they joined hands, they could definitely suppress Old Ghost Ju in terms of financial resources. But they were well aware that once they did so, they would become enemies with Old Ghost Ju and would be watched by the Ju family at all times in the future. Today, I present the third chapter. My ranking has fallen sharply. I beg for monthly votes to support me. Chapter 505. The bidding for the last auction item, the dragon searching plate, was very fierce. The price kept rising and was finally bought by the old man surnamed Zhu with a sky-high price of 2 billion yuan. This year's Imperial City auction had officially come to an end. Tan Xiu didn't participate in the bidding for the dragon searching plate because he could have as many low-level magic tools as he wanted. There was no need for him to spend a lot of money to buy them. He was even confident that he would be able to refine such low-level magic tools when his cultivation was further improved. However, the emergence of the dragon searching plate made him see a business opportunity. Such a low-level magic tool could be sold at a high price of 2 billion yuan. He silently pondered whether he should wait for his strength to improve and refine dozens of magic tools to be auctioned. On the boat, Li Laozhan grabbed Tan Xiu's shoulder and smilingly said, "Brother Tang, let's leave since the auction is over. I'm not interested in the banquet prepared by the Situ family." Wang Daoyuan shot him a look and smilingly said, "Brother Li is right. The Situ family will host a banquet to entertain the guests who participated in the black market auction. However, only a few pure businessmen will participate in this kind of occasion. Those who stay to attend the banquet are all strange and eccentric people." Strange and eccentric people? Tan Xiu's expression moved and he suddenly said, "Two brothers, I've just bought 2 items and I've spent almost all my money. Since someone is treating us tonight, let's save some money. I'll present Buddha with borrowed flowers. Let's drink at the banquet. What do you think? Of course, I'll bring God's nectar. There are 2 boxes of it in the trunk of my car. We'll drink 1 box tonight and take the other one with us when Brother Wang leaves." Wang Daoyuan's expression moved and he smilingly said, "God's nectar is the most precious gift nowadays. It seems like I've made a big profit today since I can get a box of it. Thanks a lot, Brother Tang. Then let's stay and attend the banquet arranged by the Situ family tonight." Li Laozhan shrugged and smilingly said, "Since you're willing to stay, then I'll naturally do as I please. Brother Wang, although we had some conflicts before, it didn't affect us too much and we didn't suffer any losses. So, I think we'll get to know each other after a fight. Let's drink a few cups tonight." "All right, I'll accompany you to the end." Wang Daoyuan laughed loudly. A small boat rode through the narrow river passage. Ouyang Lulu, dressed in red, stood on the bow with a smile on her face. When the small boat approached Tan Xiu's boat, she directly stepped on the bow and jumped to Tan Xiu's side. My, Ouyang Lulu's, eyesight is indescribable. If I had to use a word to describe it, it would be amazing. Darling, I just found out that you're really resourceful. You can be seen in all kinds of big scenes. Ouyang Lulu skillfully held Tan Xiu's wrist and said with a smile, "Can you stop blowing your own trumpet?" Tan Xiu shook his head and laughed. "Let's talk about something serious. Why did you come to the capital?" And he even became the host and auctioneer of the Situ clan's auction? Ouyang Lulu proudly said, "I, Ouyang Lulu, have magical abilities and boundless magical power. My fame has spread all over the country. No, it should be the whole world. The Situ clan's patriarch has good eyesight, so he naturally begged me to be the host and auctioneer of the auction. Do you believe that I won't ignore you if you keep being so narcissistic? Tan Xiao pretended to be angry. Ouyang Lulu quickly waved her hand and said with a charming smile, No, no, no. You really have no sense of humor. The current patriarch of the Situ clan, Situ Boyong, is my mother's godfather, so he's also my godgrandfather. In any case, our family's villa in Shanghai has opened for business, so I don't need to worry about the management, so I came to the capital. Tan Xiao suddenly understood and said with a smile, Then, when are you going back to Shanghai? Tomorrow morning. Ouyang Lulu said. That's right, when are you going back? It seems that you're going to start school tomorrow. Well, I'm going to treat you to a meal tonight, Tan Xiao said with a smile. And I'll hitch a ride with you to Shanghai tomorrow. Is that okay with you? Ouyang Lulu looked at Li Laozhan before shifting her eyes to Wang Daoyuan and Sujinin. She then nodded and said with a smile, No problem. But you have to wait for me for a while. I'm going to greet my godgrandfather, and then we can go. Where are we going? Tan Xiao asked. Aren't we going to have dinner? Asked Ouyang Lulu. We're staying to attend the Situ family's banquet, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Ouyang Lulu looked dazed for a moment before she happily said, That's great. I'll introduce my godgrandfather to you. He knows you and is full of praise for you. Hey, Ouyang Lu, can you not always say, and we? Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. That's your godgrandfather, it has nothing to do with me. It's all the same, it's all the same. Ouyang Lulu smiled like a flower and waved her hand. She immediately urged the staff to row the boat to the shore. Ouyang Lulu even shamelessly pestered Tan Xiao to ride his car and rushed to the hotel where the Situ family prepared the banquet. Li Laozhan handed the Yuchang sword he brought to the bodyguards and sent them away. Wang Daoyuan also did the same. After handing the sword to the bodyguards, he took Sujinin and Li Laozhan's car to the hotel. Originally, Sujinin didn't want to go to the banquet, but Wang Daoyuan knew that Sujinin was Tan Xiao's cousin. In order to get along better with Tan Xiao, he finally made Sujinin compromise. At the Imperial Capital International Hotel, the banquet was held by the Situ family in the banquet hall on the 28th floor. Along with the end of the auction, many guests who participated in the auction had already rushed over. The entire banquet hall was decorated extravagantly. Soft crystal lamps illuminated every corner of the hall, while beautiful waiters and waitresses served wine and snacks on the dining tables. What surprised every guest who arrived was that there were 2 bottles of God's nectar on each table. Next to the banquet hall, in a luxurious room, Situ Boyong was quietly reading the documents. He was over 60 years old, yet he was full of spirit and had a ruddy complexion. In front of him, a middle-aged man and a woman stood quietly with a smile on their faces. Dad, Lulu's performance is good. Her gift of eloquence has finally been shown. Therefore, the auction held by the Situ family has auctioned many items at very high prices, much higher than what we originally expected. Situ Chao waited for Situ Boyong to read the documents and reported with a smile. It's indeed very good. Situ Boyong nodded with satisfaction. That's right. You're all back. Where's Lulu? Situ Chao forced a wry smile and said, Dad, Lulu saw her sweetheart. The auction has just ended and she went to look for him. Tan Xiao? Situ Boyong's expression moved and asked, Could it be that the young divine Dr. Tan Xiao also participated in the auction held by our family? Situ Chao nodded and said, That's right. He also bought 2 items at a high price, with a total value of 1 billion. 2 items? Situ Boyong was surprised. Could it be the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix Hairpin? The total value of these 2 items is exactly 1 billion. Yeah, it's these 2 items, said Situ Chao with a smile. Situ Boyong nodded and smilingly said, I met your uncle Ouyang in Jingmen Island a few days ago and heard a lot about Tan Xiao from him. He's an amazing young man. He's indeed amazing, especially the magnificent Tang Corporation he founded. Its future development potential is simply enviable. Situ Chao said, Further, he's also a divine doctor, which is beyond my expectation. Lulu has always had her eyes set on the top of her head. If this Tan Xiao isn't good enough, I'm afraid it would be difficult for him to get her favor. Situ Boyang nodded and said, "You'll get in touch with this Tan Xiao later. If he's really good, get closer to him." Situ Chao hesitated and said, "Dad, but his identity." Situ Boyang waved and said, "I know he's a member of the Tang family and his identity is very sensitive. But if our family wants to survive in the imperial capital, it's bound to be closer to some other families. Although the Tang family has been declining in recent years, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Once an outstanding talent emerges in the Tang family's offspring, I believe it's not impossible to revive the family's glory. Compared to the Tang family, the Yao family is too powerful. Even if our family tries to get close to them, I'm afraid, forget it. Just do as I say." Situ Chao was silent for a moment and slowly said, "Dad, do you want to get involved in the power struggle between the various forces in the country?" "I won't get involved," said Situ Boyang lightly. Situ Chao was puzzled and asked, "Then what do you mean? Ouyang Lulu is my adopted granddaughter. The Ouyang family approves of the man she likes. Is it necessary for us to reject her? Do we need to avoid arousing suspicion? There's also Tan Xiao's identity as a divine doctor. If we deliberately keep a distance from him, that would be a problem. Do you understand?" Situ Chao was a smart man and instantly understood his father's meaning. Although the Situ family wanted to get closer to the Tang family, it was also justifiable. After all, Ouyang Lulu and Tan Xiao had a relationship, as well as Tan Xiao's identity as a divine doctor. Even if getting close to him would make many people annoyed, so what? After thinking it through, Situ Chao nodded and said, "I know what to do, Dad." In the banquet hall, after Tan Xiao, Li Laoshan, Wang Daoyuan, and Ouyang Lulu arrived, many people immediately came forward to greet them. Although Li Laoshan and Wang Daoyuan's identities were unusual, those who were qualified to come here had extraordinary statuses. They came to greet them mainly because of Tan Xiao. Although some of them already knew that Tan Xiao was a descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital, more people cared about Tan Xiao's identity as a divine doctor. After all, who wouldn't suffer from illness and disasters in their lives? Having an acquaintance with a divine doctor was only good for them. Chapter 506. Although Tan Xiao didn't like this kind of social interaction, he came with a purpose today. Therefore, after exchanging greetings, he led Ouyang Lulu, Li Laoshan, and Wang Daoyuan to a remote corner and sat down in front of a table. "Tan Xiao, why do you look like you're suffering while exchanging greetings with others?" Ouyang Lulu smiled and moved closer to Tan Xiao's side. "I really hate this kind of greetings without any substance," Tan Xiao said with a helpless expression. "Maybe people will forget who you are after talking for a while. Even if they remember you, it may be troublesome to get it. Having a purposeful relationship is definitely not as good as having a pure bosom friend." "That's right." Li Laoshan clapped and smilingly said, "Brother Tang's words really hit the bottom of my heart. When we first met in Saipan, we didn't know each other's details at all. We didn't even know each other's names. It's just that the other party is very interesting, and after getting to know each other, we felt that we hit it off." At the side, Wang Daoyuan's expression moved and he quickly asked, "Brother Li, you said that you and Brother Tang met in Saipan? I heard that there's a big project going on there in the last 2 months. Could it be?" "It has nothing to do with me." Li Laoshan waved his hand and smilingly said, "Although I also got the news, my business hasn't reached overseas yet." Nodding with a thoughtful expression, Wang Daoyuan said, "I once sent some people to investigate after I heard about the big project over there. Unfortunately, I didn't find much news. I only heard that someone bought an island and rebuilt it. What a pity! Such a big project, yet I didn't get it. Otherwise, I would have really made a fortune." Li Laoshan glanced at Tan Xiao with a strange expression and fell into silence. Ouyang Lulu, who was sitting next to Tan Xiao, once again leaned toward Tan Xiao and spoke in a voice that only the two of them could hear. "Tan Xiao, are they talking about the island you bought?" "It should be." Tan Xiao also replied in a very low voice. "But I don't want this matter to be known by many people, so don't talk too much." "Got it." Ouyang Lulu smiled. The banquet hosted by the Situ family was very casual. As the host, the patriarch of the Situ family, Situ Boyong, personally came. After greeting many of his old friends, he was dragged to a table by a few of them. As the dishes were served, the scene was very lively with good wine and delicacies. Tan Xiu was a man of few words. Even though the people at his table all had the intention to make friends with him, he simply responded to them. He was concerned about Situ Boyong, the patriarch of the Situ clan. Tan Xiu, I'll take you to toast to my god-grandfather. Ouyang Lulu suddenly put down her chopsticks and said with a smile. Tan Xiu said with a faint smile, since he's your elder, then let's go meet him. It just so happens that I also want to see the Situ clan's patriarch. Ouyang Lulu asked with a strange expression, you want to see God-grandpa? What is it? Tan Xiu smiled faintly and said, you'll know later. Let's go. As the two of them got up and came to Situ Boyang's table, Ouyang Lulu pulled Tan Xiu's arm and smilingly said, God-grandpa, Tan Xiu and I are here to toast you. Situ Boyang turned his head and looked at Ouyang Lulu before his eyes immediately fell on Tan Xiu. After carefully observing him for a while, he nodded with satisfaction and smilingly said, a very good young man, Tan Xiu. Since you're my god-granddaughter's sweetheart, you should get closer to our Situ family later. We'll be closer, Grandpa Situ, Tan Xiu said with a smile. Let me toast you with this cup of wine. Situ Boyong picked up the wine cup and drank it in one gulp with a smile. He then clicked his tongue twice and sighed, the god's nectar produced by your magnificent Tang Corp is simply a bejeweled nectar. The taste is really memorable. Tan Xiu, for the sake of our family's Lu, can you open the back door for this old man and sell some to me? You must be joking, Grandpa. Tan Xiu said with a smile. If you really like it, I'll tell Kong Xia to send some to you later. Good, good, good. It's really good. Situ Boyong laughed. Grandpa Situ, shall we have a chat after the banquet is over? Tan Xiu said. Situ Boyong stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and smilingly said, all right. You and Lulu can come together and we'll talk about family matters. All right, we won't disturb you then. Tang Xiu complied and then brought Ouyang Lulu back to the table where they had just eaten. Inwardly, he was thinking about the deal with Situ Boyong later. He might not have cared about the existence of the Situ family before, but after today's auction, he realized that he was wrong. The Situ family was a force of the occult sect and had a very close relationship with many occult sect members in the country. He should be able to get many things that were very suitable for him as long as he went through the Situ family. For example, the Situ family was able to take out the Imperial Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix hairpin in this auction, which showed that the Situ family was very powerful. Perhaps, the Situ family would be able to get some good things in the future. The banquet ended. Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu escorted Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan out of the hotel and then went to a luxury suite on the 28th floor of the hotel. At this time, Situ Boyong was talking with 2 old men. Upon seeing Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu's arrival, he waved his hand and said, Tan Xiu, you're Lulu's sweetheart, so you're not an outsider. So, please wait for a while. We need to talk about something important. We'll talk again later. Alright. Tan Xiu complied but didn't leave. Instead, he and Ouyang Lulu sat on the sofa in the innermost side. On the sofa in the center of the hall, Situ Boyong extinguished the cigarette in his hand and slowly said, we must find the tomb map. We're only missing one piece. As long as we find it, I'll go there myself. You must also be prepared. This is definitely a big job for us. One of them, a lean old man in a Chinese tunic suit, nodded and said, don't worry. We've actually prepared for it. Unfortunately, we have no way to determine the specific location. But, Brother Situ, is your body capable of performing such a dangerous acupoint sealing mission? You 2 old geezers can do it, so why can't I? Situ Boyong proudly said. The 3 of us have searched hundreds of tombs, but we've never encountered an ancient tomb where we can't determine its origin and who's buried there. We absolutely can't let go of such an opportunity. The lean old man nodded and sighed. Yeah, it's a pity that the earth-drilling mouse died. That old geezer was selfish. If he had called the 3 of us earlier, maybe he wouldn't have died. Although he stole the Imperial Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal from the ancient tomb, I really want to see the flying sword he mentioned before his death. Let's wait for the news. Even if we can't get the third tomb map, we must follow the general direction to find it. I believe that there must be a big secret hidden in the ancient Zhang mountain range, said Situ Boyang slowly. Not far away. Tan Xiu's heart slightly moved as he listened to their conversation. A flying sword? Could it be a flying sword? But there's no one controlling the flying sword, so it should be a sword array. This kind of sword array should be very powerful. Could it be arranged by some powerful person? As Tan Xiu thought up to there, he immediately got up and came to the front of the three old men, saying, I just heard you say that there's a flying sword. I might know something about this situation. The two old men furrowed their brows and revealed displeasure in their eyes. Sidiboyong, however, raised his brows and smilingly asked, Since you said you know something, then tell us about it, Tan Xiu. A flying sword is the legendary flying sword of a cultivator, said Tan Xiu. If there's a flying sword in the ancient tomb you mentioned, but there's no living person inside, it means that someone has arranged a sword array with flying swords in the ancient tomb. And the person who can arrange such a sword array is definitely a powerhouse among cultivators, so the power of this sword array can't be underestimated. A sword array? The three old men were moved. They didn't expect that Tan Xiu actually knew about the existence of cultivators. Sidiboyang pointed to the empty sofa at the side and said, Tan Xiu, you know about cultivators, flying swords, and sword arrays, so you should know more about them, right? Tell us. After sitting down, Tan Xiu said, Cultivators have mysterious and unfathomable power and terrifying means. I'm sure you all know that I bought the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal at a high price, but have you ever wondered why I bought it? Sidiboyang pondered for a moment and said with a serious expression, Don't keep us guessing, Tan Xiu. Get to the point. As a matter of fact, the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal is a magic tool, a very powerful one at that. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. I can't tell you its specific function, no. But what I can say is that I know a lot about magic tools and cultivators. I even have a way to break that sword array. Sidiboyang and the other two old men's complexions drastically changed. Shocked expressions could be seen in their eyes as they stared at Tan Xiu and didn't speak for a long time. Eventually, you said that the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal is a magic tool, Tan Xiu? Asked Sidiboyang in a deep voice. Also, you said that you can break that sword array? That's right. Tan Xiu nodded. So you're a cultivator? Asked Sidiboyang quickly. I may not be a cultivator, but I know a lot about them. Tan Xiu shook his head. Of course, you can also consider me a cultivator since some of my abilities are comparable to cultivators. What abilities do you have? Asked the skinny old man hurriedly. For example, I have a deep attainment in arrays, and I also have a high attainment in making talismans. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Arrays? Talismans? The three old men looked at Tan Xiu and were speechless at the moment. They knew that Tan Xiu was a divine doctor, but never did they expect that Tan Xiu was actually proficient in arrays and could even make talismans. How did you learn it, Tan Xiu? Asked Sidiboyang. I used to read books and I like all kinds of books. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Because of my good luck, I obtained a few books, which contained medical knowledge, array formations, and talismans. After many years of research, I finally learned some skills. Although the monthly votes have been slipping, Quiet Night has decided to update 3 chapters today, one of which is a supplementary chapter. Also, Quiet Night will release 10 chapters in 3 days starting tomorrow. As for the reason, the immortal world baby knows. Chapter 507. Sidiboyang and the other two observed Tan Xiu's expression. They could see that Tan Xiu looked calm and didn't seem to be lying. All kinds of thoughts kept churning in their minds. The three of them had known each other for more than 50 years, so they were very familiar with each other. As they pondered and exchanged glances, the three tacitly understood each other's thoughts. Sidiboyang stroked his chin and said, Tan Xiu, since you're proficient in arrays, I wonder if you're interested in going with us since there's a sword array in the ancient tomb we're going to explore? Don't worry, we'll count all the harvest in the ancient tomb to you. I'm indeed interested in exploring. It's very exciting and fun. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Since the three of you don't mind, then I'll go with you when the time comes. I can't guarantee anything else, but if we encounter an array in the ancient tomb, I'll crack it. As for the talismans, I'll also prepare them in advance. Tan Xiu, can you show us? Asked the lean old man. Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. We can't be sure whether you're really proficient in arrays or not, but you said you can make talismans. How about you make one tonight and let us see it? Said the lean old man. I need a brush, ink, and paper, said Tan Xiu without hesitation. The paper is yellow paper, and the ink is cinnabar ink. The three of you are old and you often go to unclean places, so it's inevitable that evil chi will invade your bodies. I'll make 3 evil-repelling talismans to ensure that you won't be invaded by evil chi in the future. The 3 of them were overjoyed upon hearing it, and their attitude toward Tan Xiu turned a bit closer. Evil-repelling talismans. It was the most important thing in the strange doors. Although each of their families had evil-repelling talismans handed down, the number of evil-repelling talismans in their families had been reduced to the extreme with the passage of time. For example, the Sidhu family only had 3 evil-repelling talismans left. The other 2 families were not as good as the Sidhu family. Although it was very late now, the Sidhu family could easily find what Tan Xiu needed with their ability. Ouyang Lulu, on the other hand, sat at the side and didn't speak. At this moment, her eyes had already been replaced by extraordinary splendor. Even though she felt that she already had a great understanding of Tan Xiu, she still never imagined that Tan Xiu was actually able to craft talismans. He could even walk into the circle of the elders of the strange doors. Outstanding! She felt that Tan Xiu was simply too outstanding. He was simply perfect and flawless. When the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were brought to Tan Xiu, she and the other 3 old men sat quietly at the side, watching Tan Xiu concentrate on drawing the strange characters. His painting technique was as smooth as moving clouds and flowing water. His brush strokes were like dragons and snakes, and his words were like dancing dragons and dancing phoenixes. Although they looked extremely complicated, there was an indescribable charm to them. Half an hour later, Tan Xiu made 3 evil-warding talismans. The talisman looked ordinary, but when Sidhu Boyong and the other 2 held it in their hands, they could feel a chill in their hands. That's right, it's an evil-warding talisman. Sidhu Boyang's eyes lit up, and his eyes were rippling with excitement. The lean old man's skinny palms slightly trembled while holding the evil-warding talismans. His wrinkled face was full of excitement as he muttered to himself, "It's been 100 years. I've never heard of anyone being able to make these evil-warding talismans. The number of people in our strange doors is very small, and the things passed down by our ancestors are even fewer. I thought that this kind of evil-warding talisman would only be used once, but I never thought that our strange doors' evil-warding talismans could be made even more." Another old man with a sarcoma on his forehead nodded repeatedly and said, "That's right. With these evil-warding talismans, Divine Dr. Tang? No, Grandmaster Tang can be considered as a member of our strange doors. The 3 of you are Tang Xiu's seniors, so it's reasonable to say that you know more than me," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "If there's anything I don't understand in the future, I hope you can give me some pointers." Sidhu Boyong moved his eyes away from the evil-warding talisman with difficulty. His eyes then fell on Tan Xiu's face and said with a serious expression, "Can we make a deal, Tan Xiu?" Tan Xiu's expression moved and asked, "You mean, you want to make a deal with me with these evil-warding talismans?" Sidhu Boyong heavily nodded and said, "I'm willing to buy these evil-warding talismans for 50 million. I don't need a lot of them. 100 is enough." 100? Tan Xiu's mouth fiercely twitched a few times. 50 million for 1 evil-warding talisman, and 100 of them would be 5 billion. How could this thing be so valuable in the eyes of these strange doors people? The lean old man also said without hesitation, "My Jin Men clan needs 50 of them. The price is also set at 50 million each. What do you think, Grandmaster Tang?" "I also need 50 of them," another old man said in a deep voice. Tan Xiu stared blankly at the 3 of them. A wry smile filled his heart. Had he known earlier that he could make so much money by relying on these evil warding talismans, he wouldn't have bothered to do business. It must be noted that this evil warding talisman was not the only one he could make. With his current cultivation, he could also make dozens of other talismans. If each of them could be sold at such a price and in such quantity, he would probably become one of the richest people in the country, wouldn't he? Tan Xiu looked at the lean old man and the old man with a sarcoma on his forehead and asked, "How should I address these two seniors?" "Jinmen Tian. Li Yuan." "Senior Jinmen, Senior Li," said Tan Xiu. "Give me 3 days and I'll definitely hand over 50 evil warding talismans to each of your clans." Jinmen Tian clapped his hands and smilingly said, "Great. That's great. Grandmaster Tang, let's exchange our contact information. I'll prepare the money when the time comes." Li Yuan was pleasantly surprised. "All right," Tan Xiu said with a smile. At the side, Sidu Boyong looked at Tan Xiu in a daze. Suddenly, he seemed to realize something and said, "Two brothers, the matter we discussed has been decided. We'll immediately set off to the ancient tomb after we find the third map. If we can't find it before the end of December, we'll rely on the 2 maps and the general direction to find it." "No problem. I'll inform Grandmaster Tang when the time comes." Jinmen Tian nodded. "If so, then I won't keep you two for long." Situ Boyong nodded. Jinmen Tian and Li Yuan exchanged glances and tacitly got up to bid farewell. In the living room of the luxury suite, only Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu were left. Situ Boyong returned to Tan Xiu and took a seat, saying, "Tan Xiu, you said you wanted to talk to me before. What is it?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Grandpa Situ, your Situ family has been running the imperial capital's black market auction for so many years. You should have some special channels to find those strange and bizarre things. Can we discuss this? If your Situ family can find those things and let me pick them in advance, I'm willing to spend a lot of money to buy them. Of course, if you don't want to, we can also cooperate in other ways." Situ Boyong squinted his eyes and asked, "Tell me about other ways of cooperation." "For example, exchanging items," said Tan Xiu. "You mean you want to use the evil repelling talisman to exchange for the things you like?" asked Situ Boyong. "Not only the evil repelling talisman, but I can also take out several other talismans." Tan Xiu shook his head. "For example, the ice talisman, the raging flame talisman, the lightning talisman, and the healing talisman." Situ Boyong suddenly got up and exclaimed with a horrified face, "You can make so many talismans? What kind of ancient books did you get?" "You don't need me to tell you what kind of ancient books I got," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I just want to ask you if you're willing to cooperate with me like I said." Situ Boyong gasped a few times and resolutely said, "No problem. As long as you can really take out these talismans, the Situ family's treasure vault will be open to you." "Then let's happily decide," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "As for the evil repelling talismans you want to buy, I can promise to sell 100 of them to you. But I have a condition." "Say it." Situ Boyang's eyes turned red at the moment. His Situ family was one of the occult families, and they needed these magical talismans very much. At this moment, he would agree even if Tan Xiu asked for his life. Because once the Situ family could get so many talismans, it would definitely make the Situ family's strength soar and give more benefits to the future generations. "You should already know that I spent 3.1 billion to buy the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix Hairpin," said Tan Xiu. "The total value of 100 evil repelling talismans is 5 billion. I only need the Situ family to return the 3.1 billion to me and let me pick 2 things from your Situ family's treasure vault. Then our deal will be considered complete." Situ Boyong stared blankly. After pondering for a while, he shook his head and said, "Tan Xiu, perhaps you don't know what's in our Situ family's treasure vault. But I can tell you that the value of many things inside can hardly be measured with money. Cold Ice Talisman, Raging Flame Talisman, Lightning Talisman, and Healing Talisman," said Tan Xiu. "Add 5 talismans for each of the 4. I want to choose 3 items." Situ Boyang's complexion constantly changed as countless thoughts churned inside his mind. The conditions put forward by Tan Xiu caught him off guard. He was excited and nervous at the same time. But more than anything else, he could see that the Situ family was about to move towards glory, and their status in the occult doors would rise steadily in the future. Could he agree to it? If he didn't, let alone the Cold Ice Talisman, Raging Flame Talisman, Lightning Talisman, and Healing Talisman, he wouldn't even be able to get the Evil Repelling Talisman. But if he agreed to it, then those things in the treasure vault, especially those things, would be picked by Tan Xiu a few minutes later. Situ Boyong looked up as if he had made up his mind. He looked at Tan Xiu and said, "I agree, but you must promise me one thing." "Please say it." Tan Xiu was delighted inwardly. "Since Jin Men Tian and Li Yuan already know that you can make evil repelling talismans, then forget it," said Situ Boyong. "But you must never let them know about the other 4 talismans. If you want to sell those 4 talismans, you must go through our Situ family. Our Situ family will take a 10% commission for every transaction in the future." Deal. Tan Xiu clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Don't forget to throw down your monthly ticket, dear." Chapter 508. As the saying goes, people are in high spirits when encountering happy events. Tan Xiu was in a very good mood. After participating in the imperial capital's auction fair, he had a deal with the Situ family's patriarch, Situ Boyong. His harvest was quite good, which made him very excited. He even began to look forward to seeing how many good things were in the Situ family's treasure vault. On the way to the Situ family's land, Tan Xiu turned on the music in the car, letting the wonderful notes wander in the car. "Tan Xiu, I'm really happy for you." Sitting on the front seat, Ouyang Lulu spoke with a smile on the corner of her mouth. Her eyes sparkled with undisguised adoration. Tan Xiu glanced at her and lightly smiled. "I'm actually very happy, but I'm afraid I'll be doused with cold water later." "Are you talking about the Situ family's treasure vault?" Ouyang Lulu laughed. "That's right." Tan Xiu nodded. "I gave up billions of wealth to pick 3 good things from the Situ family's treasure vault. If I don't get something satisfactory in the end, I'll lose a lot." Ouyang Lulu clenched her fists and seriously said, "Tan Xiu, I think you can rest assured about this issue. The Situ family's heritage is very deep. To be honest, even I can't figure out the Situ family's history. Maybe it's 100 years, maybe a few hundred years, or even 1,000 years. In short, their family has always stood tall, and their family members have a lot of wealth. I'm sure there must be some good things in their family's treasure vault." "I hope so." Tan Xiu lightly smiled. After driving for nearly an hour, more than a dozen cars slowly entered a manor. Tan Xiu learned from the GPS that this place was no longer within the 4th Ring Road. However, in the imperial capital, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, the Situ family's wealth and power should not be underestimated. There are a lot of people who know martial arts. Even though it was late at night after the Land Rover SUV entered the Situ family's manor, Tan Xiu could still see a lot of security guards scattered at the intersections of the internal roads. At the same time, he would occasionally see patrols passing by. These people didn't carry electric batons or anything like that. Instead, they carried cold weapons like knives and swords on their backs. If they hadn't known that this was the Huaxia of the new era, they would have thought they were in the Jianghu era where ancient heroes roamed the land. Tan Xiu scanned them with his spiritual consciousness and found that these people all had daggers or firearms on their waists. "Tan Xiu, the Situ clan's villa is not bad, right?" This villa was the size of 2 regular football fields, and there were a total of 12 luxurious villas of different styles. We are walking inside, and the innermost luxurious villa is the Situ family's conference building. Ouyang Lulu was very familiar with the Situ family and slowly introduced it to Tan Xiu. When the convoy split up at a fork in the road, Situ Chao had already gotten out of one of the cars and pointed at the car that was driving ahead. After Tan Xiu got the hint, he continued to drive forward and soon arrived at the innermost part of the Situ clan. At the center of the Situ clan's villa was not a fountain square, but a European-style luxury villa. The 3-story luxury villa covered a large area and was surrounded by a 2-meter-high wall with an electric fence. In front of the only big iron gate in the south, for strong security guards were seriously standing guard. "Get off." After Tan Shio parked the car, he glanced at Ouyang Lulu and said. At this moment, Sidu Boyong also got off the car. Seeing Tan Shio and Ouyang Lulu approaching, he faintly smiled and said, "Lulu, the Sidu clan has a rule that outsiders are not allowed to enter unless it's a special and important matter. You may be my adopted granddaughter, but we can't break the ancestral rule. You stay outside. Tan Shio, come with me." Ouyang Lulu understood Sidu Boyang's words since her Ouyang family also had such an important place that outsiders were forbidden to enter. After nodding, she waved and said, "Tan Shio, I'll go to my place first. It's a villa in front. Remember to find me after you're done with your business." "Alright." Tan Shio nodded. As Ouyang Lulu left, Sidu Boyong smilingly said, "Come with me, Tan Shio. I hope you'll always keep what you've seen and heard in my Situ family in your heart." "I understand." Tan Shio gently nodded. As the electric iron gate slowly opened, Sidu Boyong led Tan Shio inside. Inside the courtyard, there were still 4 stalwart men standing guard. Tan Shio found that there were at least 20 experts inside and outside this luxurious villa. Interesting. There's even an elevator in this 3-story villa. Tan Shio followed Sidu Boyong to the elevator door on the left side of the hall and said with a faint smile. Sidu Boyong faintly smiled. As the elevator door opened and the two of them stood inside, he reached out and pressed the button below the 3-story display. Almost automatically, the place that couldn't be seen before suddenly lit up with a red light showing the number -1 floor. Additionally, Sidu Boyong leaned toward an LCD screen to verify his retina before the elevator began to descend. Creak. As the elevator stopped and the door slowly opened, a long corridor appeared in front of Tan Shio. After the two of them walked out of the elevator, Sidu Boyong pointed to the corridor in front and seriously said, "This is the Situ family's treasure vault. There are a total of 8 rooms on both sides of the corridor. The 4 rooms on the right side in front are used to store gold, silver, and jewelry, the wealth accumulated by the Situ family for generations. The 4 rooms on the left side are the rare treasures of the Ouyang family. I've ordered people to open the doors of the 8 rooms. You can enter any room at will and pick 3 things you like. Won't you come with me to have a look?" Tan Shio asked with a smile. Sidu Boyong forced a smile and said, "I won't go with you. I'm afraid that I'll be distressed if you pick something good. I'll wait for you here." Having said that, he walked to the sofa and directly sat down. Tan Shio took a deep breath and walked inside. He had spent billions to get this opportunity, so he didn't want to waste his time. At the same time, he also released his spiritual sense. As Sidu Boyong said, the 4 rooms on the right side stored a huge amount of gold, silver, and jewelry. The first room on the left side was filled with antiques, calligraphy, and paintings. There were a lot of things in the remaining 3 rooms. After all, each room was 40 to 50 square meters in size. There was a row of cabinets on the walls around the room, with 2 rows of long glass tables in the middle. The things inside were clearly visible under the soft illumination of the light. Tan Shio's expression slightly moved. He directly strode into the second room on the left side and deliberately looked around for a few minutes. He constantly observed the things and finally came to the item that had been locked by his spiritual sense. It was an ancient bronze lamp with a rusty surface. It was inconspicuous among the many items in the room. However, Tan Shio keenly observed that there was a Buddhist saraira inside the ancient bronze lamp. This Buddhist saraira had been specially refined by someone. Even though it had been in the ancient bronze lamp for many years, the spiritual power inside it was still intact. What surprised Tan Shio even more was that someone had carved a Buddhist cultivation method on the Buddhist saraira. Although the method is ordinary, it is indeed not easy to achieve this step on Earth, where there are no immortals. The grade of this ancient bronze lamp should be at the level of a pseudo-immortal artifact. It seems that there were indeed powerful cultivators on Earth. It is even possible that there were immortals who ascended from Earth in the immortal world. Tan Shio pondered for a moment and put away the ancient bronze lamp. Although he still didn't know what effect this ancient bronze lamp had, it was still a pseudo-immortal artifact. If he could make use of it, it might be of great help to him in the future. In the corridor outside the elevator, Siduole, who was sitting on the sofa and smoking, suddenly moved his ears. He had put on a headset at the moment, and the sound coming from it made his expression become strange. The ancient bronze lamp? Why would Tan Xiu choose such an item? I have studied the ancient bronze lamp. Although there is a spherical thing inside because the mouth of the lamp is too small, the thing inside can't be taken out at all. The ancient bronze lamp is very hard and belongs to the level of an antique, so it was left in the family's treasure house. Could it be that Tan Xiu knows the origin of this ancient bronze lamp? Siduole frowned as he thought about it. His heart that was hanging in the balance was a lot more relaxed, because the ancient bronze lamp was not among the most precious treasures that he cared about. In other words, even if Tan Xiu chose more precious things later, he could only choose two. So, Tan Xiu came out of the second room on the left. After entering the third room, he glanced at the right corner and then looked around casually. The Situ family really stored a lot of rare treasures. Tan Xiu secretly estimated that if the rare treasures in any room were to be sold, they could sell for a good price. If the Situ family wanted to, they could exchange all the things in this treasure house for RMB. The total value would definitely make countless rich people tremble, and they might even become the richest people in the country. TSK, they even have an imperial edict. This imperial edict was personally written by the founder of the Ming dynasty, and it is a good thing with a big seal. If this thing was placed outside, it would be a national treasure, wouldn't it? Tan Xiu shook his head. As a smile swept across his face, his footsteps gradually moved toward the right corner inside. He even became a lot more excited in his heart. However, no matter how excited he was, he did not want to show it, because he clearly found that there were extremely hidden surveillance cameras in every room. Therefore, he knew that his every move inside was probably being monitored by the people of the Situ family. There are still 90 essentials in the book review section, and 500 points will be rewarded. Please leave active comments in the book review section. On the last day, I plan to distribute all the essentials and points. Finally, I urgently need monthly votes. Chapter 509. The mouth of the green guanine vase was sealed by a beautifully carved jade stopper without the slightest gap. The surface of the guanine vase was engraved with strange characters, which were used by many cultivators with ordinary cultivation to engrave talismans. What made Tan Xiu excited was not the characters on the surface, but what was inside the jade bottle. It was a drop of golden, glistening yellow liquid, the size of a marble, lying quietly inside. After holding the guanine vase in his hand, Tan Xiu's expression changed slightly because he keenly sensed that this small guanine vase weighed hundreds of kilograms. If it was an ordinary person, even if they exerted all their strength, they would not be able to lift it. Huh! Tan Xiu frowned. To his surprise, he could not pull the jade stopper at the mouth of the vase with his strength of 10,000 kilograms. After observing for a moment, Tan Xiu finally realized that the runes engraved on the surface of the vase actually formed an array formation on the surface. This array formation was very strange. Even though he was experienced and knowledgeable, he did not know its function without in-depth understanding. This is it. Because of time constraints, Tan Xiu did not immediately study it. Instead, he directly put it away and walked to the fourth room on the left. Although he did not find anything special with spiritual power fluctuations in his divine sense, he still carefully observed for a long time. However, to his disappointment, he did not find anything special. Finally, his eyes fell on a golden dragon head. This dragon head was very big, made of gold, and the carving was even more exquisite. Tan Xiu moved it and found that it weighed more than 200 kilograms. In the corridor outside the elevator, Siduboyang, who was sitting on the sofa, had a smile on his face. He was very satisfied with the second item that Tan Xiu chose. Although he also felt that the guanine vase was very strange, with a small bottle weighing hundreds of kilograms, their Sidu family had studied it for 7 or 8 generations, but no one had been able to study it thoroughly. Therefore, he did not feel much heartache that the guanine vase was chosen by Tan Xiu. Patriarch, the third item that Tan Xiu chose is our family's golden dragon head. The voice of the family member in the monitoring room came from the headset. What? Situ Boyong was stunned, and his expression changed drastically. He instantly jumped up from the sofa and rushed into the corridor. His speed was very fast, and he didn't look like an old man at all. When he rushed into the fourth room on the left and saw Tan Xiao coming out with the golden dragon head, he immediately shouted, "Tan Xiao, can we make a deal? You give up this golden dragon head and I'll let you pick 2 more things." Tan Xiao shook his head and smilingly said, "Grandpa Situ, we've agreed before that you won't stop me no matter what I choose. Now that the 3 items have been chosen, you won't regret it, right?" Situ Boyang's mouth fiercely twitched a few times. He finally looked at the golden dragon head that Tan Xiao was holding with a distressed expression. After stroking it for a while, he bitterly said, "Although this Situ Boyang is very distressed, I'll never regret my words. The ancestors of the Situ family have spent a great deal of effort and paid a huge price for this golden dragon head. It almost caused the Situ family to be exterminated hundreds of years ago. I never thought that I would lose it in my hands today." "Isn't it just a golden dragon head cast from gold?" Tan Xiao smilingly said. "Your Situ family has a lot of gold. At worst, you can just cast it again. What the hell do you know?" Situ Boyong opened his mouth and finally shook his head with a bitter expression. Tan Xiao's expression moved and curiously asked, "Grandpa Situ, this golden dragon head is already mine. I've already picked 3 items, so I won't regret it. Can you tell me what's so special about this golden dragon head?" Situ Boyong stared at Tan Xiao and asked, "Are you really sure?" "100% sure," replied Tan Xiao without hesitation. Situ Boyong nodded silently and said, "Legend has it that the Yellow River and Yangtze River converge at the place where the golden dragon incarnates. Later on, for some unknown reason, someone found that place and used a magical method to cut off the dragon's head. The ancestors of the Situ family have been trying their best to find the dragon's body in the converging place after obtaining the golden dragon head. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to find it for hundreds of years." "What can we get if we find it?" asked Tan Xiao curiously. "I don't know if it's true or not, but rumor has it that the dragon head and the dragon's body are connected to restore the golden dragon's full appearance and can save the golden dragon and turn it into a living creature," said Situ Boyong solemnly. "Whoever connects the dragon head and the dragon's body can obtain the golden dragon's recognition and become its master." Cough, cough. Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at Situ Boyong and said, "Grandpa Situ, have the Situ family's members been brainwashed by others? How can they believe such absurd rumors? This golden dragon head is completely cast from gold, but the carving is exquisite and lifelike." "That's why I don't know if it's true or not," said Situ Boyong with a forced smile. "But everyone in the strange doors agrees with this statement, because there are countless magical things in the boundless world. If the rumor is false, we'll only be disappointed at most. But if it's true, I believe I don't need to tell you how much benefits our Situ family can get, right?" Tan Xiao nodded with a smile and said, "All right, this absurd rumor of your Situ family will be interrupted from today onwards. Your family doesn't need to waste money and effort to find it later. I'll take this thing away and give me 10 days to hand over all the talismans I promised you to the Situ family. However, I hope you can send someone to Demonic City to get them when the time comes." Situ Boyong nodded and sighed. "Compared to this golden dragon head, I value those talismans more. Since we've agreed on this beforehand, these 3 items are all yours. Just put them here first. I'll send someone to help you carry them out." "No need," said Tan Xiao with a smile. "Please help me carry the ancient bronze lamp and the guanyin vase. I can carry this golden dragon head." "Do you think I can carry that guanyin vase?" Situ Boyong forced a smile. Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, "Indeed. This guanyin vase is very strange. I found that it's heavier than this golden dragon head. Alright, I'll have to trouble Grandpa Situ to send someone to move this golden dragon head to my car." "Alright," Situ Boyong replied. 10 minutes later, the 4 stalwart men moved the golden dragon head to Tan Xiao's Land Rover. Since the trunk couldn't fit it, Tan Xiu brutally tore the back seat of the car and put the golden dragon head inside. As for the guanine vase and the ancient bronze lamp, he quietly put them into his interspatial ring. Tan Xiu, go to Lulu's place. She's waiting for you. Situ Chao had already arrived and was waiting outside the courtyard. With a distressed expression, he looked at the 4 clansmen putting the golden dragon head into Tan Xiu's car. Only then did he try to calm down his mood and squeezed out a smile. With this thing in the car, I don't dare to leave easily. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Anyways, I'll call Lulu and ask her if there's anything else. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. After saying that, he dialed Ouyang Lulu's number and told her about the golden dragon head. She didn't ask Tan Xiu to go to her place, but told Tan Xiu to be careful on the road. It was already midnight when he returned to the Tang family's ancestral residence. To Tan Xiu's surprise, his grandfather, Tang Guisheng, and his father, Tang Yunda, were still awake. Both of them were sitting on the sofa in the living room and chatting. The fragrance of tea filled every corner of the living room. Grandpa, Dad, you haven't rested yet? After entering the door, Tan Xiu said with a smile. You're going back to Shanghai tomorrow, aren't you? Tang Guisheng said with a smile. That's why we're waiting for you and have a chat with you. That's right, where did you go today? Ding! Tang Xiu's cell phone's ringtone sounded as several text messages were sent at the same time. He didn't hurry to reply to Tang Guisheng. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and looked at it. A strange expression suddenly appeared on his face. It was because he found that 2 huge sums of 2.5 billion had been transferred to his account. Moreover, the remaining 2 short messages were sent by Jinmin Tian and Li Yuan. They said that they believed in Tan Xiu's character and transferred the money to him in advance. Tan Xiu looked up and said with a smile, I went to participate in a black market auction and got a good harvest. Tang Guisheng's expression moved and asked, Did you participate in the Imperial City's auction held by the Situ family? That's right. Tan Xiu said with a smile. The Situ family has a deep heritage and it's very difficult to estimate their family's strength. It's estimated that even our Tang family is not much stronger than the Situ family. Every few years, they hold an auction in the Imperial City. To put it bluntly, it's a black market auction. Most of the things auctioned are things that can't see the light of day. The reason why the major families in the Imperial City turn a blind eye to the Situ family is because the Situ family is a member of the occult sect. Xiu, I'm very curious. Why did you think of participating in the auction held by the Situ family? Tan Xiu told him about Li Laoshan's request for help. Finally, he said with a smile, I didn't expect that Wang Daoyuan would turn hostility into friendship with Li Laoshan so easily. However, since their matter has been resolved, it can be said that I've accomplished my mission. You did a good job. Tang Guisheng nodded and smilingly said, That's right, you haven't told me what harvest you got today. The Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix hairpin. Tan Xiu said with a smile. I spent 3.1 billion to buy these things in the auction. What? Tang Guisheng and Tang Yunda looked dull at the same time. 3.1 billion? He actually dared to spend 3.1 billion in an auction? Wasn't this too extravagant? If he could make money, he could spend it. Tang Guisheng suddenly felt that he had made a mistake by handing over 50 billion yuan to his grandson. He spent so much money that even 50 billion wouldn't be enough for him to toss and turn. Chapter 510. Cough, cough. Tang Guisheng coughed a few times. With a wry smile on his old face, he said, Grandson, can we discuss something? I gave you 50 billion yuan in hopes that you can use it to develop the Tang family and add bricks and tiles to our family's current strength. About that, spending money lavishly is not good. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he looked at Tang Guisheng with a strange expression and said, Grandpa, are you sure I'm spending money lavishly? Isn't it? Asked Tang Guisheng. Tan Xiu spread out his hands and said, Since you think I'm spending money lavishly, then listen to me first. After the auction, I had a private talk with the Sidu family's patriarch, Sidu Boyong, for a long time and also made a deal. No, it should be 3 deals. Take a look at the text messages on my mobile phone. Two sums of money have just arrived too. 5 billion yuan each, for a total of 5 billion yuan. The 1 billion yuan that the Situ family promised me has yet to arrive. Tang Yunda quickly grabbed the phone and read the few short messages on it. His mouth was wide open and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Although he knew that his son was capable, he never thought that his precious son could get such a huge sum of money in just one night. 5 billion yuan plus 1 billion yuan was a total of 1 billion yuan. What kind of deal did he make with others? With a surprised expression, Tang Guoxing grabbed the mobile phone and glanced at it. Despite his extraordinary status, he still couldn't help but jump a few times. After being silent for half a minute, he returned the mobile phone to Tan Xiu and asked, "Xiu, I don't believe that a pie falling from the sky will fall on your head. Tell me, what kind of deal did you make with them?" "They are all people from the occult sect, and I happen to have the ability to make talismans," said Tan Xiu. "Therefore, they bought a total of 200 talismans from me." Upon hearing this, Tang Guoxing's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He raised his arm in disbelief and pointed at Tan Xiu, saying with a trembling voice, "You can actually make talismans? How is this possible? In this day and age, how could there be someone who knows the method of crafting talismans?" Tan Xiu smiled faintly and said, "Grandpa, you don't need to make such a fuss. Isn't it just making talismans? I know many other things. However, in order to avoid trouble, I had to conceal my strength and bide my time." "That's right, you can say that." Tang Guoxing and Tang Yunda looked at each other. Both father and son were rendered speechless by Tan Xiu's words. "What do you mean by a faint pretentious style?" This was it. Tan Xiu patted his forehead. He seemed to recall something and smilingly said, "That's right. I also went to the Situ clan's treasury and got some good things. One of them was in the car in the front yard. Grandpa, do you want it?" Golden dragon head. "Since it's something given by my grandson, I naturally have no reason to refuse it," said Tang Guoxing with a faint smile. "Come on, I need to go out and take a breather. Let's go to the car in the front yard and see what kind of golden dragon head it is." Upon hearing it, Tang Yunda smiled and said, "I also need to take a breather, Dad. This brat, it's like I'm riding a roller coaster. It's too stimulating." Quickly, the three generations came to the front yard. Tang Guoxiu, who was in a good mood, came to the Land Rover SUV. He watched as Tan Xiu opened the door. He stretched himself comfortably and didn't rush to look inside the car. Instead, he raised his head, took 2 deep breaths, and then said with a smile, "The weather tonight is good. I've lived in the imperial capital for so many years, but it's rare to see a sky full of stars at night." "Indeed." Tang Yunda chuckled. Tang Yunda said with a smile, "The imperial capital will soon be uninhabitable if it goes on like this. Unless humans can mutate in this harsh environment." "Ha!" Tang Guoxing burst into laughter. However, when he lowered his head and glanced at the open car door, his laughter came to an abrupt stop and the wrinkles on his face froze in an instant. This situation only lasted for a few seconds. Tang Guoxing suddenly strode forward and quickly got into the car, moving closer to the golden dragon's head. "What a good thing!" This exclamation didn't come from Tang Guoxing, but from Tang Yunda. He held the car door and looked at the golden dragon's head next to the old man, full of praise. "It's not a good thing," Tan Xiu said with a smile, "but aside from the other 2 things in the Situ family's treasury, only this golden dragon's head can barely be regarded as a relatively cool thing, so I brought it back. How about it, Grandpa? This dragon's head is cast with absolute pure gold. If you like it, I'll leave it for you as a decoration." Tang Guoxing turned his head with difficulty. Although it was night time, there were lights in the courtyard, and there was also a faint light in the car. Hence, not only could Tang Xiu clearly see the complicated expression on his face, even Tang Yunda could clearly see it. Tang Guoxing looked at Tan Xiu. His lips squirmed a few times before he spoke with a somewhat hoarse voice. "Xiu, do you know that I used to be in charge of managing the state's secret vault in our country?" "I don't know." Tan Xiu shook his head. "When I was managing the documents in the state's secret vault, I once went through all the confidential files inside," said Tang Guoxing. One of them was about this golden dragon's head. The information was passed down from the Tang dynasty, and it was well protected. This golden dragon's head was recorded in one of the lost national treasures of our State Cultural Relics Bureau. I didn't expect that this golden dragon's head had been secretly collected by the Situ family. The ancestors of the Situ family paid a great price to get it, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Since it's been in their possession for hundreds of years, it's their private property. Now that it's in my hands, it's my private property. Grandpa, this thing is for you. Clutching his chest, Tang Guosheng shook his head with a forced smile and sighed. I originally came out of the house to take a breath of fresh air and soothe my mood. But I didn't expect that not only did my mood not calm down, it even stimulated me more intensely. I say, Xiu, your ability is really amazing. This golden dragon's head is yours since you got it. I can't take it, nor do I dare to take it. Why do you say that? Tan Xiu was confused. The golden dragon's head is indeed a good thing, but it's just a dead object for our Tang family. Tang Guosheng sighed. If its existence is spread out, not only will it bring no benefits to our family, it will also bring great harm to us. Those who are hiding in the dark and eyeing our Tang family covetously will use this as an excuse to make our family fall into the teeth of public opinion. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, if that's the case, then I'll take it away. Didn't I buy an island in the Pacific Ocean? I'll quietly bring this golden dragon's head to Nine Dragons Island after it's built there. That's a good idea. Tang Guosheng nodded without hesitation. But you must hide it well before you take it out. Don't let others find it. Tan Xiu smiled and said, I may not have the ability if it's something else. But when it comes to hiding things, I'm afraid no one in the world can compare to me. Don't worry. The golden dragon's head will never be discovered by others, and not even half a word will be spread out. All right. Tang Guosheng heavily nodded. After getting off the car, he sighed and said, you just said that you spent 3.1 billion in an auction. I'm a bit regretful about it. I was wondering if it was too rash to give you 50 billion. But who would have thought that not only did you take the opportunity to earn 3.1 billion back, but you even earned 5 billion more? Most importantly, you even got a treasure like the golden dragon's head. It's really amazing. Tan Xiu chuckled and said, it's just a coincidence that it's something those people from the occult sect lack the most. Tang Guosheng let out a faint smile. His expression suddenly moved as if he recalled something and quickly asked, Xiu, you just said that you got a total of 3 things from the Situ family's vault. Aside from this golden dragon's head, what are the other 2 things? Old objects. An ancient bronze lamp and a guanyin vase, answered Tan Xiu with a smile. Tang Guosheng nodded and said, I'm not familiar with antiques, but I also know that the real good things are very expensive. Let me count it. You got a total of 5 good things today, so you still have 5 billion. TSK, you're worthy to be my grandson. You're really amazing. Grandpa, I'm afraid I won't be able to stay here anymore if you praise me again, said Tan Xiu. All right. I won't praise you anymore. Tang Guosheng waved his hand and smilingly said. Tang Yunda had been standing at the side, listening to the conversation between grandfather and grandson. The sense of satisfaction inside his heart was particularly strong. It was much more satisfying than when he had a meteoric rise in the army and obtained great military merits again and again. He felt that the most correct thing he had done in his life was to find a good wife and have a good son. And now, his body was getting better and better, and he had almost recovered to the level of a normal person. He believed that as long as he persevered in his exercise and slowly recuperated his body, it was even possible for him to recover to his peak state in the past. Xiu, I know your mother's thoughts. She thinks that studying is the only way out. Her wish all these years is that you can enter a good university and get a good diploma in the future. If you want to stay at Shanghai University to study, then continue to study. However, you still have to do things when it's time to do them. Take advantage of your youth and learn while working so that you can achieve better results in the future. Tang Yunda patted Tan Xiu's shoulder and smilingly said, Don't worry, Tan Xiu said with a smile. I know what I'm doing. Tang Yunda smiled and said, It's good that you know what you're doing. Also, I heard that you have a close relationship with a lot of girls. If you find one you like, it's also good for you to fall in love. Your mother is still very young, so she can help you take care of your child. Cough cough, it's a new month. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket. Chapter 511. The next morning, when the first ray of sunlight rose from the east, Tan Xiu had already stepped out of the Tang family's ancestral residence. Outside the courtyard, Ouyang Lulu, dressed in a black leather coat, leaned on the front of a Hummer. She looked at Tan Xiu with a faint smile as he came out of the courtyard. If you don't come out, I'm afraid I'll have to go inside and pull you out. There's only 1.5 hours left for the flight route application. With the traffic jam in the imperial capital, I estimate that it'll be very difficult for us to get to the airport within 1.5 hours, said Ouyang Lulu with a smile. Tan Xiu's brows pricked as he turned to look at the soldier standing guard at the gate and asked, "How long will it take to get to the airport from here if we take the subway?" 1.5 hours, answered the soldier. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows as he turned to look at Ouyang Lulu and asked, "Say it. How can we get to the airport ahead of time?" "Are you begging me?" Ouyang Lulu said with a charming smile. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes at her and snappily said, "Don't waste my time. I'm really in a hurry to get back to Shanghai. I don't have any classes this morning, but I have classes in the afternoon. If I can get there earlier, I'll have to report to school." A curved arc outlined on the corner of Ouyang Lulu's mouth. With a proud expression, she took out a bunch of keys and walked to the left side. "Come with me. I'll have to trouble your Tang family to send this Hummer back to the Situ family." Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. He then greeted the two soldiers standing guard and followed behind Ouyang Lulu, walking toward the alley entrance. When the two of them came to the street outside, they saw a very handsome Harley motorcycle. How did you get it?" Tan Xiu stared blankly at Ouyang Lulu as she mounted the Harley and murmured. Ouyang Lulu giggled and said, "I asked the Situ family to drive that Hummer here. As for this Harley motorcycle, it was me who rode it. How about it? I'm prepared for both sides. Not bad, right?" Tan Xiu looked at Ouyang Lulu with a strange expression and snappily said, "It turns out that this is all your plan. I know it's rush hour and there will definitely be traffic jams on the road, so I prepared this motorcycle." Ouyang Lulu giggled and said, "I just want to have intimate contact with you. Don't those guys ride motorcycles and brake from time to time to take advantage of girls in order to chase after them?" Tang Xiu couldn't help but be amused by her remark. Ouyang Lulu said with a smile, "Don't stare blankly, hurry up and come up. Otherwise, even if we're not afraid of traffic, we won't make it in time if we delay any longer." "Alright." Tan Xiu, who was sitting behind Ouyang Lulu, hesitated for a moment before putting his hands on her shoulders. Ouyang Lulu rolled her eyes and reached out to grab Tan Xiu's hands, letting him hug her waist. Then, she picked up the helmet on the handlebar and put it on for Tan Xiu. Only then did he put it on himself, activated it, and sped off into the distance. Good elasticity. Tan Xiu's hands hugged Ouyang Lulu's waist. He could still feel the heat coming from her even though she was wearing a leather coat, as well as the good elasticity. After returning to Earth, although he and Kong Xia had skin contact, Kong Xia's waist was not as elastic as Ouyang Lulu's. "Darling, is it cool or not?" Ouyang Lulu slightly tilted her head and shouted while riding the bike. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. "Cool my ass. Just drive properly and don't have any crooked ideas." At 10:30 in the morning, the plane landed at the Shanghai airport. Tan Xiu and Ouyang Lulu got off the plane. Under Ouyang Lulu's strong request, Tan Xiu had no choice but to take her to Shanghai University. Under Ouyang Lulu's persistent pestering, he even agreed to have lunch together with her. When the taxi stopped at the entrance of Shanghai University, Tan Xiu threw the key to Blue Star Villa complex to Ouyang Lulu and then rushed to the campus alone. When he arrived at the classroom, he found that there were not many people in the classroom. There were only a dozen people gathered in twos and threes, talking about some interesting things that happened during the holidays. "Oh, Big Bro Tang is finally here. Hu Qingsong, who had a thick northeastern accent, shouted loudly when he saw Tan Xiu coming in from the door. Immediately, more than a dozen students in the classroom looked at Tan Xiu with strange expressions on their faces. It was obvious that there was a story behind it. Tan Xiu smiled and greeted everyone. He then came to sit next to Hu Qingsong and curiously asked, "Why do I feel like everyone's looking at me with a strange expression? What's going on?" Hu Qingsong grinned and said, "Hee, we've officially elected a class leader this morning. Your position as the class monitor has been removed, and I'm now the new class monitor. Also, Teacher Han has personally named you as a negative example. She hopes that everyone won't learn from you." Tan Xiu raised his brows and asked, "What about me?" Hu Qingsong counted with his fingers and said, "All right, I'll tell you the details. First, you skip class. Am I right? Second, you're irresponsible. You're the acting class monitor, yet you didn't fulfill your duty as a monitor. Am I right? Third, you didn't abide by the class discipline and left the class without permission, right? Stop. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at Hu Qingsong. A small resentment toward Han Qingwu arose inside his heart. This was the situation after he went to Han Qingwu's class in high school. Only mentioning it now was clearly using public office to avenge a personal grudge. However, thinking about it, Hu Qingsong was right. These problems did exist. He really didn't deserve to be a student since he skipped class a lot. Han Qingwu. Tan Xiu silently repeated this name more than 10 times in his heart. Finally, he helplessly decided that he would try not to give Han Qingwu a hard time in the future. There was a saying that people had to lower their heads when they were under the eaves. If he wanted to get along well in Shanghai University, he had to compromise with her without delaying his serious business. The county magistrate is not as good as the person in charge. It's so fucking reasonable. Tan Xiu groaned weakly in his heart. Then, he patted Hu Qingsong's shoulder hard and asked, "Where are you, Kai and the others? Why are you the only one left in the classroom?" Hu Qingsong curled his lips and said snappily, "Where else can they go? They ran to pick up girls. Since they moved their target away from Mu Weining, they've all set their eyes on other girls. Sooner or later, those studs will die on women's bellies." Tan Xiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Why do I smell a sour smell when I listen to you? Haven't you found your target yet?" "Who said I haven't found my target yet?" Hu Qingsong angrily said. His words came to an abrupt halt. His angry expression also froze in an instant. Tan Xiu burst into laughter. He then stood up and said, "Let's go since there's nothing to do this morning. Since they've gone on a date, then we'll depend on each other. Anyways, I'll treat you to lunch." Hu Qingsong's eyes lit up. He grinned and stood up, saying, "That's what I said. The heavens and the earth are good, but nothing is better than eldest bro Tang. How about I marry you, eldest bro Tang? Don't worry, I won't wear your gold or wear your silver. I'll let you pamper me as long as you give me food every day." Fuck off. Tan Xiu cursed with a smile. As the duo left the classroom and walked toward the campus gate, a confused look appeared on Hu Qingsong's face as he said, "Eldest bro Tang, you don't have to treat me to lunch, do you? Do you want to go out and have a big meal?" "You don't want to have a big meal with me?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "There will be someone else having lunch with us apart from the two of us." "Who is it?" Hu Qingsong was confused. "A friend of mine," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Is it a man or a woman?" Hu Qingsong's spirit shook. "It's a woman," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Hu Qingsong's eyes lit up and he asked again, "How does she look like?" "She's as beautiful as a flower, enchanting and charming," Tan Xiu said with a smile again. Hee, I know you're the best to your brother, eldest bro Tang." Hu Qingsong grinned and said, "The kind of woman you mentioned is my favorite type. Let's make a deal first. I'll treat you to a big meal after I successfully pursue her." Tang Xiu rolled his eyes and said, "I'll treat you to a big meal if you can catch up with her." Hu Qingsong stared blankly for a moment. The smile on his face immediately disappeared as he helplessly said, "Is it fun to fool me, eldest bro Tang? I knew it. That woman's appearance must be ugly, else why would she push such a great beauty to me? Forget it, just keep it for your own use. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing as he shook his head. He patted his shoulder and then walked towards the Blue Star Villa complex. Since it was still early, they didn't take a car and strolled back to the villa. After Tan Xiu rang the doorbell, the courtyard door automatically opened and Ouyang Lulu's enchanting figure appeared at the entrance of the villa's hall. Eldest bro Tang, isn't this your home? Why did you ring the doorbell? After Hu Qingsong followed Tan Xiu into the courtyard, his eyes fell on Ouyang Lulu. When he saw Ouyang Lulu's appearance, his mouth instantly gaped and his eyeballs nearly popped out. What's wrong? Tan Xiu said with a smile. A great beauty of this level really can't enter your eyes? Hu Qingsong desperately gulped down his saliva. He shook his head with a blank expression and murmured, I can. I absolutely can. If such a beauty can marry me, I'm willing to shorten my life by 30 years. Ha! This time, it was Tan Xiu's turn to laugh heartily. Hu Qingsong was awakened by Tan Xiu's laughter. An awkward look appeared on his face and he didn't dare to look at Ouyang Lulu again. Lulu, he's Hu Qingsong, my classmate, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Ouyang Lulu had already heard Hu Qingsong's words. A charming smile outlined on the corner of her mouth as she extended her hand and said, Hello, I'm Ouyang Lulu. Welcome to my home. As for me, I'm afraid I can't marry you because I'm already taken, the one next to you. But I can help you introduce a girlfriend, but the premise is, you need to be as capable as my man. The flower is taken? My man? Hu Qingsong stared blankly and turned to look at Tan Xiu with an incredulous expression. I'll update in silence and not say anything _. I'll never say that I want the guaranteed monthly votes from my brothers and sisters. Chapter 5:12. Hu Qingsong had never seen Ouyang Lulu, but he heard from Yukai that he once saw a peerless beauty in Tan Xiu's house. Originally, they all thought that Yukai was talking nonsense. But at this time, Hu Qingsong believed it. The girl's appearance and figure were definitely not worse than the first campus belle of Shanghai University, Mu Weining, nor was she worse than the superstar Zhang Xinya. Even if he were to choose between Mu Weining, Zhang Xinya, and these three women, he would definitely choose this one. It was because this girl gave him a cool and hot feeling, which was what he liked the most. Big bro Tang, is she also your woman? Asked Hu Qingsong with a dull expression. Before Tan Xiu could reply, Ouyang Lulu's brows pricked up and asked, What did you just say? Also? Who else is Tan Xiu's woman besides me? Hu Qingsong was dumbfounded. He never expected that his slip of the tongue would cause the girl in front of him to have such a different emotion. It seemed like he had pushed Tan Xiu into a pit of fire, didn't he? Tan Xiu shook his head with a smile. He grabbed Ouyang Lulu's wrist and strode toward the villa, saying, Lulu, don't listen to Hu Qingsong's nonsense. I'm a pure and honest person, and I won't fall in love before I graduate from college. I have no other woman. Hu Qingsong immediately felt relieved after hearing it. He quickly caught up and nodded repeatedly, That's right. Big bro Tang absolutely has no other woman. Although there are other women pursuing him, who is Big bro Tang? He's the kind of person who walks among thousands of flowers, leaving no one behind. Big bro Tang, am I right? Right my ass. Ouyang Lulu snappily said, I'm the one you're talking about. Ugh, Hu Qingsong was speechless. Tan Xiu was also speechless. He shook his head and waved his hand, saying, Wait for me, you two. I need to go upstairs and change my clothes, then we'll go out to eat. 20 minutes later, Tan Xiu, Hu Qingsong, and Ouyang Lulu left the villa complex and drove to the Everlasting Feast Hall. Just as the trio stepped through the Everlasting Feast Hall's entrance, Tan Xiu saw Han Qingwu chatting with Qi Nan in front of the counter. Tan Xiu, your homeroom teacher. Ouyang Lulu gently touched Tan Xiu's arm and whispered. Tan Xiu nodded silently. He noticed that Han Qingwu and Qi Nan were looking at him, and the two women were walking towards him. He immediately frowned. However, when he thought of Han Qingwu's status in Shanghai University, he smiled bitterly in his heart. The problem that he had thought about before was that if he continued to treat Han Qingwu with that unapproachable attitude, it would bring him a lot of trouble if he continued to stay in Shanghai University. It might even be a problem for him to apply for leave in the future. Teacher Han, what a coincidence! Hu Qingsong was the first to speak with a smile. With a smile on her face, Han Qingwu nodded to Hu Qingsong. Her eyes then fell on Tan Xiu, and then looked at Ouyang Lulu. Then she said, Tan Xiu, why didn't you report to campus on time this morning? I just came from the imperial capital and was delayed by something, said Tan Xiu. Han Qingwu glared at him, turned to Qi Nan and said, Manager Qi, I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Remember to tell your big boss not to skip classes in the future. All right. Qi Nan nodded while suppressing her smile. Tan Xiu looked at Han Qingwu's back as she carried her bag and left. He shook his head helplessly. When his eyes shifted to Qi Nan, he asked, Why did she come here? She came here for lunch, boss. Qi Nan said with a smile, Our everlasting feast hall is open for business, so I can't just shut her out, can I? Ugh, Tan Xiu was speechless. Manager Qi, Ouyang Lulu hummed and said, You must shut the door to those women who conspire against your boss later. Then should I also shut the door to Miss Ouyang? Qi Nan asked with a smile. Huh. Ouyang Lulu stared blankly for a moment before she immediately waved her hand and said, I conspire against him openly, but Han Qingwu conspires against him in the dark. It's not the same. I'm going to be the everlasting feast hall's lady boss in the future. She can't be compared with me. Qi Nan couldn't help but laugh. She glanced at Tan Xiu and quickly said, Boss, you came here for lunch, right? I'll arrange it right away. Tan Xiu sighed helplessly. Ouyang Lulu didn't shy away from him at all and even shamelessly pursued him. He really had no way to deal with it. He had told her many times, but none of it worked. Hence, he didn't bother to waste his saliva. At the side, Hu Qingsong was dumbfounded as he looked at Tan Xiu and Qi Nan. His mouth was open so wide that a big goose egg could be stuffed inside. The look of disbelief on his face vividly expressed the shock in his heart. What are you staring blankly for? Get inside. Tan Xiu walked a few steps forward and called out to Hu Qingsong, who was frozen in place. Hu Qingsong finally shut his mouth. But after he caught up, he stammered and asked, Big Bro Tang, what did Manager Qi just say? Say? Boss? You're the everlasting feast hall's boss? Paper can't wrap fire. Tan Xiu was deeply aware of this truth. Now that Hu Qingsong knew about it, he didn't feel like hiding it anymore. He nodded and said, Yes, I'm the everlasting feast hall's boss. The reason why I didn't tell you before was because I didn't want you to think too much. Now that you know about it, don't sell me out. Don't tell anyone about it. Hu Qingsong gulped down his saliva and nodded with a blank expression. At this moment, he didn't know how to describe his feelings. It was because he never dreamed that Tan Xiu, who had slept in the same dormitory with him and called him a brother, turned out to be the everlasting feast hall's boss. It must be noted that according to his understanding, the Everlasting Feast Hall was the top restaurant in Shanghai. He heard that its annual net income was more than 9 digits. What was 9 digits? It was 100 million. With an annual net income of more than 100 million, did that mean that Tan Xiu himself was a super rich man? Tan Xiu casually found a seat in the corner of the first floor and sat down. He, Ouyang Lulu, and Hu Qingsong were the only 3 people eating, so he didn't need to go upstairs to the luxury box with great fanfare. Upon seeing Ouyang Lulu sitting beside him with a matter-of-fact expression, he secretly sighed inwardly. He pointed to the opposite side and said to Hu Qingsong, Don't be confused. Hurry up and sit down. After taking a seat, Hu Qingsong cautiously asked, Big Bro Tang, can you tell me the truth? How much money do you have? To be honest, I really haven't calculated how much money I have recently, said Tan Xiu with a smile. In my opinion, money is just a series of numbers without any meaning. I've always been too lazy to think about meaningless things. Hu Qingsong looked at Tan Xiu with a silly expression. Thunder rolled inside his heart, and his worldview collapsed. What a show-off. A thick aura of pretentiousness flooded Tang Xiu like a tidal wave, causing Tang Xiu to feel as though he was possessed by a golden light at this moment. Hu Qingsong's big donkey eyes were pierced with a burning pain. The envy, jealousy, and hatred of ordinary people simply couldn't express even 1/10,000th of his feelings. One of Hu Qingsong's dreams was to be the number in his bank card, to the point that he couldn't even count it with his fingers. But now he was still a poor farmer, with only a few dry rations in his pocket. He had to be thick-skinned enough to ask his parents to provide for him. Yet, Tan Xiu actually told him that money was just a number in Tan Xiu's eyes, and that it had no meaning. It made his strong heart almost collapse. What kind of person would say that money was just a series of numbers? Only those super-rich people with endless wealth would say something like that, right? Could it be that Tan Xiu was now comparable to those super-rich people? The fragrant dishes were served by the Everlasting Feast Hall staff. Nearly all the staff of the Everlasting Feast Hall knew Tan Xiu's identity, so they performed very well in front of him. 4 meat dishes, 2 vegetable dishes, and a soup were all appetizing. After Tan Xiu started eating, Hu Qingsong felt like he woke up from a dream and broke free from his complicated emotions. However, he didn't rush to eat and instead looked at Tan Xiu and asked, "Big bro Tang, are you willing to support me in the future? I'll be diligent in any work." "You want to be an apprentice chef in the Everlasting Feast Hall?" Tan Xiu asked with a smile. "I believe you have more than one business in the Everlasting Feast Hall," said Hu Qingsong. "Why do you say so?" Tan Xiu raised his brows and asked with a smile. "Because even if the Everlasting Feast Hall can make money, the amount is limited," said Hu Qingsong with all seriousness. "You can't think that money is just a series of numbers. The Everlasting Feast Hall's headquarters is in Jingmen Island, with branches in Hong Kong, Shanghai, and the imperial capital," said Tan Xiu. "Do you think I have any other business now?" Hu Qingsong stared blankly. After thinking for a while, he still shook his head and said, "It's not enough. You're usually carefree and careless, with the rough character of a northeastern man." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Actually, you're not. You're definitely a shrewd person. However, doesn't your family have a business? Don't tell me you don't plan to go home and take care of your family's business after you graduate from college? My family can only be regarded as a nouveau riche family. My dad's body is tougher than mine," said Hu Qingsong with a forced smile. "My family members are like wolves and tigers, always eyeing that business. I'm not interested in going back and snatching business from them." "I can invest to help you with your business," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "You can invest to help me with my business, but can you make more money than working for you?" asked Hu Qingsong. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. The smile on his face was replaced by a serious expression as he tapped the table with his fingers and said, "Don't you think it's a bit early to talk about this?" "Do you really think it's early?" Hu Qingsong asked again. Tan Xiu shot him a defeated look and said with a helpless expression, all right. Since you've said it like this, you can work for me later. We'll talk about the specifics later. Also, Xue Chao is an honest man, so I'm ready to let him help me." "You haven't told me what other business you have apart from the Everlasting Feast Hall," asked Hu Qingsong hurriedly. "Today's third update, I'm looking for a guaranteed monthly ticket support." Chapter 5:13. Tan Xiu once thought that he must have a group of confidants and subordinates if he wanted to expand his business in the future. He felt that it was a bit early to tell Hu Qingsong about it. But since it had come to this, it would be meaningless to conceal it. After pondering for a while, he finally made a decision and said, "The Magnificent Tang Corporation." Hu Qingsong frowned and thought for a while. His complexion suddenly changed and he abruptly got up from the sofa. He pressed his hands on the table and stared at Tan Xiu as he hurriedly said, "You mean you're the Magnificent Tang Corporation as big boss? The company that produces God's nectar?" "That's right." Tan Xiu nodded. Hu Qingsong had already been shocked to the point of no return today. His heart had already become numb. Therefore, he recovered quickly this time as he raised his thumbs up and praised, "Big bro Tang, this little brother is willing to do my utmost for you. You're simply a god in my eyes. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Can you die if you don't exaggerate? Cut the crap and eat quickly. We still have classes in the afternoon." Hu Qingsong quickly nodded and said, "Let's eat, shall we? Teacher Han just gave you some eye drops. We mustn't be late in the afternoon no matter what. However, Big Bro Tang, you're really a marvel. You have endless wealth and stand at the level that countless students can't even imagine for a lifetime, yet you're still like an obedient baby studying and studying at school." This old Hu is convinced. Tang Xiu was originally worried that it would affect the relationship between the two if he told him too much. But now, he felt that his worry was obviously unnecessary after seeing Hu Qingsong's appearance. Since he was in a good mood, he smilingly said, "Learning more things while you're still young is always good for you." "I understand that." Hu Qingsong nodded. For the first time, Ouyang Lulu seriously observed Hu Qingsong. She suddenly took out a Paradise Manor VIP card from her bag and put it in front of Hu Qingsong, saying, "This is for you. You're welcome to dine at the Paradise Manor later." Paradise Manor? What kind of place is this? Hu Qingsong curiously asked. "It's a comprehensive manor for dining and entertainment." Ouyang Lulu lightly smiled. "With the serial number on this membership card, all expenses will be waived while you are studying at Shanghai University." Hu Qingsong asked curiously, "Are you the owner of Paradise Manor?" "Yeah." Ouyang Lulu nodded. At this moment, Hu Qingsong felt as though all the strength in his body was sucked away. He looked at Tan Xiu and then at Ouyang Lulu and suddenly said with a dejected expression, "I suddenly realized that I've been living a failure for more than 20 years. We're about the same age, but you've already made a name for yourselves, while I'm ignorant and have accomplished nothing." "I'll be 24 soon, so I'm a few years older than you," said Ouyang Lulu with a charming smile. "So, don't worry. Study hard. After a few years, you will be able to step into society. When that time comes, work hard and you will definitely achieve something." Hu Qingsong clenched his fists and seriously said, "I'll think about it. To be honest, being with the two of you today has touched me deeply." Even if he followed Boss Tang in the future, if he didn't have any social experience, he wouldn't be able to do anything good. "I've decided that when I have time in university, I'll go out to work and gain some social experience." "That's a good thing." Ouyang Lulu gave him a thumbs up and giggled. The three of them enjoyed the meal very much. Although Ouyang Lulu couldn't be alone with Tan Xiu, Hu Qingsong's startled and shocked expression from time to time made her feel very amused. Coupled with his forthright character, it was to Ouyang Lulu's liking. However, just as the three of them were about to finish their meal, the sound of beating and cursing came from the hall outside the everlasting feast hall. The sound of things being smashed made the guests at the outermost tables stand up to avoid it. "You guys eat first. I'll go and have a look." Tan Xiu raised his brows. He put down his chopsticks, got up, and walked outside. In front of the bar counter. For security guards of the everlasting feast hall had already subdued the troublemakers. On the floor was a blind old lady with disheveled hair and a walking stick, constantly shaking her head and sighing. It was obvious that she was hit by a hard object on her forehead. There was a small cut on her forehead with blood flowing down to her eyebrows. "What happened?" Tan Xiu walked over and asked Qi Nan. Pointing to the blind old lady on the floor, Qi Nan forced a smile and said, "This old lady's mouth is too unpleasant to hear. When she first came in, everyone thought she was going to eat, but in the end, she directly went upstairs and walked around all the private rooms. When she came down, she told the customers who hit them that they were going to die today. She asked them to immediately contact their other family members and make arrangements for their funeral." The obese middle-aged man, who was restrained by a security guard, still had anger in his eyes. He desperately raised his head and shouted, "That's right. That damn old thing. It's fine if she only said 1 or 2 sentences. But she just kept repeating the same words and kept cursing us to die. We told her to leave, but she refused to leave and even spat on the dishes we ordered." Tan Xiu could only force a wry smile inwardly. He grabbed the napkin box from the table at the side, took out a few pieces and squatted in front of the blind old lady, saying, "Old lady, you cursed people and even spat on their food. This is wrong. Come on, don't move. Your forehead is bleeding. I'll wipe it for you first. I'll send someone to take you to the nearby infirmary to bandage it. The old blind woman's frowning expression instantly changed. She grabbed Tan Shio's wrist and squeezed it a few times. After releasing it, she suddenly clapped her hands and smilingly said, "They can live. Their family of brats can finally live." "You damned old hag. You're still talking?" The obese middle-aged man angrily shouted. Tan Shio raised his hand to interrupt the blind old lady. He frowned and asked, "Old lady, I don't understand why you said that. Since their family doesn't understand, and neither does everyone else, can you explain it to us?" The blind old lady pointed to Tan Shio and said, "You know heavenly secrets better than me. Although you can't see it now, you definitely understand it. This old blind still wants to live for a few more years. I'm still reluctant to part with the secular world, so heavenly secrets must not be revealed. Trap their family and don't let them leave the restaurant even half a step away. Red candles, dog blood, and 10,000 firecrackers. Spread them on the ground outside when their family leaves the restaurant tomorrow." Heavenly secrets? Tan Shio's expression changed and he grabbed the blind old lady's wrist. In just a few seconds, his expression had changed. He could clearly feel a special energy fluctuation inside the blind old lady's body. It was very strong. This energy ran through her whole body as though there was a stream of water surging inside her body. "You are?" Tan Shio asked in a low voice. "I'm so old that I even forgot my own name," said the blind old lady with a smile. "You can call me Old Blind. In this life, I, an old blind man, understand fate, fortune-telling, stealing, snatching, and losing. I didn't expect that I would find such an interesting life in just a few years. Little guy, you're very interesting." Tan Shio looked up at Chi Nan and said, "Take their family to the back and provide them with good food and drinks. Satisfy whatever they need as much as possible. Remember, don't let them leave even half a step before sunrise tomorrow morning." "Understood." Chi Nan immediately nodded. The fat middle-aged man shouted, "What are you doing? I'm warning you. This is the 21st century society ruled by law. If you dare to detain us illegally, I'll definitely sue you." "That's right. You're illegally detaining us. You're practicing feudal superstition. We're guests who came here to eat, not your prisoners." Another middle-aged woman also shouted. At this time, a young man among the onlookers also chimed in, "You're a restaurant, and they're guests who came here to eat. You shouldn't restrict their freedom like this, right? Also, this old blind looks like a swindler. She must have some kind of scheme. Don't tell me your everlasting feast hall wants to be an accomplice?" Chi Nan ignored them and ordered the 4 security guards to take the family away. Tan Shio propped up the blind old woman and brought her to his table. Then he smilingly asked, "You're very amazing, old lady. You're unexpectedly proficient in divination. You said that you can't reveal the heaven's secret, but you've actually done it. You're doing it under the condition that you lose your lifespan to save that family." The blind old woman grinned and said, "This old blind has indeed revealed the heaven's secret, but I'm not the only one who obtained the Tao. It's very interesting, very interesting. Do you know why I dared to reveal the heaven's secret?" Tan Shio was puzzled. "Because of you," said the blind old woman. "Because of me?" Tan Shio was confused. The blind old woman heavily nodded and said, "Yes, it's because of you. I found something interesting. As long as I drag you into this karmic event, the heavenly Tao's punishment seems to have lost its target and can't befall on me at all." "Can you see through my divination?" asked Tan Shio. The blind old woman quickly waved her hand and said, Don't do that. Don't harm me. I dare to see the lives of all the people in the world, but I don't dare to see your divination. Else, I'm afraid this old blind will immediately die." Asked Tan Shio again. The blind old woman shook her head and said, "I don't know. Your fate is too strange. I've been studying the heavenly Tao for hundreds of years, yet I still can't figure it out. Forget it, let's not talk about this. How about we discuss something else?" "What is it?" asked Tan Shio. "I'm tired of staying in the country. How about sending me abroad? Said the blind old woman. I like the sea, so it's better to send me to the sea. But I can't see where it is. It's like another world, another space, and I can't go there by myself. Tan Xiu was shaken inwardly. He understood that the blind old woman had already divined the situation on Nine Dragons Island. She was right. Although Nine Dragons Island was still in this world, once the reconstruction was completed and he arranged a huge array, it would definitely be like a new space, a new world. Today, the 4th chapter is here. It's the National Day, yet I can only stay at home and write. I'm also drunk. Baby, I hate you. Chapter 5:14. Calmly looking at the blind old lady, Tan Xiu shook his head and said, Old lady, you're old, so don't mess around. It was not easy to cultivate for 100 years. If one could not see through the affairs of the mortal world, one would not be able to sever the threads of the mortal world. There's a thread in the unseen world that's pulling me, and I can't escape. The blind old lady was silent. She did have an unfulfilled wish, but that wish was very, very difficult to fulfill. Perhaps even if she lived for another 100 years, she would not be able to do as Tan Xiu had said and cut off that thread of red dust. Because of this, she wanted to peek into the immortal realm in the heavenly secrets and live in seclusion. I can't. The blind old lady was silent for a long time before she shook her head and smiled bitterly. Tan Xiu lightly said, We can't miss any chance. If they couldn't transcend, they would be reincarnated and continue to bear the pain of the industry. What's the point? The blind old lady said, I want to go there. I hope you can help me. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he turned to look at Ouyang Lulu and Hu Qingsong and said, Are you two full? If you're full, wait for me outside. I'll come later. Ouyang Lulu and Hu Qingsong looked at each other in confusion. They could not understand the meaning behind Tan Xiu and to the blind old lady's words. After hesitating for a moment, they still listened to Tan Xiu and walked outside. Tan Xiu said, Tell me about your background. The blind old woman smiled and said, My origin is very simple. I'm from Hongdong County in the northwest. My ancestors were members of the occult sect, but it's a pity that too many heavenly secrets have been revealed, so I'm the only one left now. In the first 50 years, I married 9 times, and each time, my husband died early because of me. For the next 70 years, I traveled to every corner of the country, but I still couldn't find the direction and answer. Tan Xiu asked, In other words, you have nothing to worry about now? The blind old woman shook her head and said, My only wish is to find my ancestors' tomb. Unfortunately, the rule of my family is to only pass it down to males and not females. The reason why I was able to learn divination techniques was because I learned them on my own from the books and notes my father left behind. Tan Xiu nodded and said, Since you want me to help you find a place to stay for the rest of your life, then let's talk about the conditions. Speak. The blind old lady said. Tan Xiu said seriously, Give me your life. The blind old lady smiled and said, Although I don't dare to say that my fate is up to me and not the heavens, it's impossible for others to control my life. However, you are very special and interesting. If you really have the ability in this aspect, you can take it. After pondering for a moment, Tan Xiu slowly said, I'll give you half a year to think it through. If the final decision is made, I will send someone to send you there. Half a year. The blind old lady said in surprise, I don't need half a year to consider. Tan Xiu said, You don't need it, but I do. The place you mentioned hasn't been renovated yet, so it can't be used for the time being. So, come back here half a year later. Alright. The blind old lady took her walking stick and got up from the sofa, saying, I'll come back here half a year later. If there's anything you need my help with within half a year, you only need to burn 3 incense sticks and shout, Old Blind, 3 times. I'll naturally come ahead of time. Alright. Tan Xiu nodded. After sending the blind old lady away, he returned inside and looked at Qi Nan, who came to greet him, saying, Have you settled that family? Qi Nan nodded and said, They've been settled. I used some special medicine to make them faint. They'll wake up tomorrow morning. Remember my words. If they wake up ahead of time, Don't let them step out of the everlasting feast hall's entrance before sunrise tomorrow, Tan Xiu ordered. If they really want to leave, no matter how you try to stop them, just let one of them go and then send someone to follow him. Wait for half an hour. If that person doesn't have any safety issues, then let the others go. Boss, do you really believe that old blind's words? Asked Qi Nan hesitantly. I believe her. Tan Xiu nodded and said, because she's not an ordinary person. Don't look at her being easily knocked down. Don't look at her blindness. She can see things and people more clearly than anyone else. If she doesn't want to be beaten, that family won't be able to touch her at all if it's not for some special reason. What special reason? Asked Jinan, confused. She wants to attract my attention and make me come forward, Tan Xiu said lightly. She wants to lead me to her. Qi Nan knitted her brows and asked, can't she just look for you directly? Tan Xiu shook his head. He found that Qi Nan wouldn't understand even if he explained it to her. Therefore, Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, forget it. Just take care of the restaurant's business. I still have classes in the afternoon, so I'll go first. That's right, if Han Qingwu comes to look for you again, don't give her any face. Qi Nan forced a smile and said, Boss, do you have any emotional problems with Miss Han? She seems to have some complaints about you, and you. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Tan Xiu glared at her and reprimanded. In short, don't deal with her as much as possible. After that, Tan Xiu unexpectedly left the everlasting feast hall. Looking at Hu Qingsong and Ouyang Lulu waiting for him outside, Tan Xiu said, Lulu, I have to go back to school for classes in the afternoon. You go to your business first. I'll go to the Paradise Manor to have a meal with you when I have time. A trace of reluctance was revealed in Ouyang Lulu's eyes, but she still nodded and said, then I'll go back first. If you don't come to find me, I'll go to your school to find you. All right. Tan Xiu nodded and threw the car key to Ouyang Lulu. The car was a luxury car in his garage, but Tan Xiu didn't want to attract too much attention, so he usually didn't want to drive it. 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Tan Xiu and Hu Qingsong returned to Shanghai University. After returning to their dormitory, they found that Yu Kai and the others were not there, so Tan Xiu tidied up his bed. Since he rarely stayed on campus, his bed was covered with dust, and even the desk below was full of messy things. After tidying up everything, Tan Xiu looked at Hu Qingsong, who was lying on the bed with his hands as a pillow. It was unknown what he was thinking about. Tan Xiu then said with a smile, don't tell anyone about my matters. Don't worry. I understand. Hu Qingsong nodded. Tan Xiu let out an indifferent smile. He patted the bed and said, there's still more than an hour before the class starts. Stay by yourself. I'm going to the campus library. All right. Hu Qingsong replied and continued to think about his own matters. Tan Xiu knew that the things he let Hu Qingsong know today must have deeply touched him. Although he looked rough, he was actually a very meticulous person. Moreover, he was also very smart. Perhaps he didn't feel anything before, but now, he had probably begun to think about his future path. Thinking. It was a sign of maturity for everyone. Tan Xiu was a bit worried that Hu Qingsong's relationship with him would deteriorate after knowing some of his matters. But now, it seemed that his worries were groundless. On the contrary, Hu Qingsong had begun to learn to think and had begun to plan his future life. After leaving the dormitory, Tang Xiu took a few books and went to the campus library. What surprised him was that the library, which was usually deserted, was very lively at noon today. Groups of students were whispering to each other as they walked inside. What puzzled him even more was that most of them were boys. What's the situation inside, teacher? Asked Tan Xiu curiously after returning the books to the library teacher. What else could it be? Nowadays, when young men see beautiful girls, they can't wait to rush up to them to please them. Sigh, thinking back to when we were young. The middle-aged female teacher in her 40s sighed and shook her head. At the same time, her eyes were immersed in memories. A smile appeared at the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He could understand those boys who were in their puberty. If he didn't have the opportunity in the 10,000 years immortal world, perhaps he would be like those students who couldn't wait to get close to beautiful girls. After returning the books, Tan Shio walked inside again. Recently, due to various matters, he had missed a lot of reading time. Therefore, he decided that he must settle down after school started. Since he was a student, he must act like one. Read, learn, and work hard to improve his ability. When passing by a row of bookshelves, he glanced in the direction where there were many students. Through the crowd, he saw Jiang Fian sitting in the innermost corner, quietly reading a book at the desk. A smile immediately appeared at the corner of his mouth. Although he saw Jiang Fian, he was sure that she wasn't the one who attracted so many boys because she wasn't that attractive. Mu Weining. Her beautiful face appeared in Tan Shio's mind. He secretly shook his head in his heart. Mu Weining was indeed beautiful. Whether it was her face, figure, or temperament, she was the best among women. But he was hurt in his heart. He didn't want to have any emotional entanglements with her. He had fantasized about falling in love once in his life, getting married once, and having a happy life with a woman. The years in the immortal world, those days when they were together, were his happiest and most satisfying time. He even hoped that this situation would continue until the end of time, until the seas dried up and the rocks crumbled. He even made a decision that even if he succeeded in passing the tribulation, he would use deceptive means to stay in the immortal world to accompany her. But the result? Just like a dream, the dream was shattered. What was left for him was death, and what was left for him was a heart full of pain. Tan Shio didn't go over to say hello. He turned around and walked towards the required books area. After choosing a few books, he registered at the door and went straight back to the dormitory. However, after going to the library and coming out from the library, even though he made a simple disguise, he was still recognized by many people. He was almost surrounded like a superstar. This situation made him very helpless and depressed. He only hoped that as time passed, people would gradually forget his identity as a miracle doctor. Chapter 5:15. In the afternoon, Tan Shio, Hu Qingsong as well as Yu Kai and Zhao Liang, who came back beaming with happiness, came to the classroom together. No one was absent or late since the afternoon was the foreign language class of their teacher in charge, Han Qingwu. Tap, tap, the sound of high-heeled shoes stepping on the floor came from the corridor. Han Qingwu, who was dressed in casual and fashionable clothes, came from the outside with a book in her arms. When her figure appeared in the eyes of the whole class, she immediately attracted everyone's attention. Great! Finally, no one is skipping class anymore. Han Qingwu put the book on the podium and slowly glanced at the class. Her eyes lingered on Tan Shio for a second or two before she spoke with satisfaction. However, as she spoke, the eyes of the whole class fell on Tan Shio and a strange smile appeared on their faces. Tan Shio sighed inwardly. He tried his best to force a smile and said, "Miss Han is really beautiful today. I didn't report in time this morning due to some special reasons. I hope you can forgive me. This kind of situation will never happen again." Heh! A smile outlined on the corner of Han Qingwu's mouth. She glanced at Tan Shio and nodded. It's a great thing to know one's mistake and correct it. I'm not a stingy person. You stay and clean the classroom after today's class is over, and I'll forget about you skipping class this morning. Alright. Tan Shio agreed, but he secretly muttered inside, only women and villains are hard to deal with. In this class, Han Qingwu was obviously in a good mood, and the reaction of the students was also very enthusiastic. As the class ended, Han Qingwu swept her eyes at Tan Shio when she was tidying up her books and turned to walk outside. Hu Qingsong, who was sitting next to Tan Shio, elbowed Tan Shio and said with a faint smile, "Big bro Tang, our teacher Han really takes care of you. If it were other students who skipped class without reason, they would definitely have their credits deducted. But she only punished you to clean the classroom to make up for your mistakes. It seems that she has really fallen in love with you and is afraid that you won't be able to get your graduation certificate." On the other side, Yu Kai blew the long hair on his forehead and also chuckled. That's right. I also think that Teacher Han has fallen in love with Tan Shio. I say, Boss Tang, although you have a lot of women and some of them are a bit better than Class Monitor Han, our Class Monitor Han is still a great beauty. If you're a man, you might as well take her as well. Tan Xiu asked, are you two stud horses? Hu Qingsong and Yu Kai looked at each other and then raised their middle fingers at Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, I won't be staying in the dormitory tonight. There's dust on the bedding. I plan to take it to Blue Star Villa Complex to wash. I'll stay in the school dormitory starting tomorrow. With a thick face, Yu Kai said, Big Bro Tang, can we discuss something? How about giving me the key to your Blue Star Villa Complex? I'll take my girlfriend out when I have nothing to do in the future. I don't need to spend money to rent a hotel room. Fuck off. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes at him and directly refused this unreasonable request. Yu Kai didn't get angry. He stroked his chin and pondered about how to arrange a one-night stand duel in Tan Xiu's villa. 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Tan Xiu drove Yu Kai's BMW and returned to Blue Star Villa Complex with the bedding. After throwing the bedding into the washing machine in the laundry room, he asked the housekeeper Auntie Zhang to wash it for him and then went to the study room on the second floor. After releasing the fierce beast from the array, Tan Xiu took out some meat from his interspatial ring and threw it to the beast. Then, he turned around and walked to the desk. The National Day trip to the imperial capital was a fruitful harvest for him. But aside from the 9 Phoenix hairpin, the other 4 items seemed to have their own secrets. Moreover, he had yet to thoroughly study the secrets of these 4 items. Hence, he decided to study these 4 items when he had time in the future, hoping that they would be helpful to him. After having dinner, Tan Xiu took a book he borrowed from the school library and came to a chair outside the courtyard. Auntie Zhang served him some fragrant tea and he read it while sipping the tea. However, not long after, he heard the sound of something smashing coming from the villa next door. Auntie Zhang, is there someone living in the villa next door? Tan Xiu turned around and looked at Zhang Xinlan, who was sweeping the garden. I heard someone smashing things in the villa when I went out to buy groceries this morning. Zhang Xinlan nodded. Later, when I came back from buying groceries, I found a young man standing on the top of the villa, looking around. I heard the sound of something smashing several times today from the villa next door. A smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He stood up and put the book on the chair behind him, saying with a smile, I'm going out, Auntie Zhang. Having said that, he walked out of the villa's courtyard and came to the villa number 11 next door. After looking at the closed door, he rang the doorbell. For you. As the iron gate was slowly opened, Yang Lu, who was crossing his arms and looking unhappy, looked at Tan Xiu and then raised his chin and asked. Tan Xiu pointed to the next door and said with a smile, I'm the owner of Villa number 9, your neighbor. Yang Lu stared blankly for a moment and immediately asked, Is there something you need? There's something I need, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Yang Lu was silent for a moment and then said, Even if you're fine, I happen to have something to talk to you about. Come in. Tan Xiu stepped into the courtyard and looked at the broken bottles and cans in the courtyard. The smile on the corner of his mouth turned thicker. After following Yang Lu straight to the villa's hall, he found that this villa was not as luxurious as his own, but the interior decoration was also good. Furthermore, what surprised him was that the inside of the villa was very neat and clean despite the messy appearance of so many broken things outside. What would you like to drink? Yang Lu asked. White wine. Beer? Foreign wine? I like drinking tea. Tan Xiu said with a faint smile, The better the tea, the happier I'll be. Yang Lu rolled his eyes and left. When he came back, he was holding a pot of tea and 2 empty cups. After putting them in front of Tan Xiu, he said, Pour the tea yourself. By the way, what are you looking for me for? Tan Xiu reached out to pour the tea and didn't answer Yang Li's question. Instead, he said with a smile, Tell me, what's the matter you need me for? I didn't expect you to be such a difficult person to deal with. Yang Lu snorted and said, Fine, if you don't want to say it, then I'll ask first. Since you live next door to me, you should know that there was a problem in my villa some time ago, right? There's a problem in your villa, so you should be looking for the property management. Why do you ask me? Tan Xiu asked back. If I'm looking for the property management, then I don't need to ask you, said Yang Lu. Can you answer one more question for me? Asked Tang Xiu with a smile. Go ahead. Yang Lu spread out his hands. What do you do? Tan Xiu asked. In a flash, Yang Lu sat straight on the sofa. His body tensed up as his eyes stared at Tan Xiu. After half a minute of silence, he slowly said, What do you want to say? It's nothing. Don't be nervous, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I'm not a cop, and I don't like to poke my nose into other people's business. Of course, if you're willing to treat me as a good person, I'll gladly accept it. My things, are they with you? Asked Yang Lu. Yes, they're with me. Tan Xiu nodded. Phew, Yang Lu was obviously relieved. He slowly took out a cigar box from his bosom and took out 2 cigars. After throwing one to Tan Xiu, he lit it and took a deep puff. Then he said with a smile, Since they're with you, then I'm relieved. After some observation, I found that a lot of people came to my villa while I was away. Also, I lurked in the securities monitoring room and found some things from the surveillance video. But that's not important. What's important is my things. You didn't see my figure in the video, did you? Asked Tan Xiu with a smile. You're indeed not among the people who came to my villa, said Yang Lu. Say it. How can you give my things back to me? You haven't answered my question yet, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Yang Lu was silent for a while. Then he suddenly grinned, revealing his big white teeth as he said with a smile, I'm a hero thief. Have you heard of the occult sex thieves? You're also a member of the occult sect? Asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. You know the existence of the occult sex people? Asked Yang Lu with a surprised expression. Who exactly are you? I didn't know much about the occult sex people before, said Tan Xiu with a smile. But I went to the imperial capital yesterday and participated in the auction held by the Situ family. I just didn't expect that my neighbor turned out to be the occult sect's great thief. You're a hero thief. A bit of dissatisfaction was revealed on Yang Li's face as he corrected Tan Xiu's words. Then he continued, All right, I've told you everything. Give my things back to me. Those gold, silver, jewelry, cash, diamonds, and the like are all yours. I need my tools. Tan Xiu got up and said with a smile, Since I know what I want to know, I won't take anything from you. Come with me to my place. I'll give your things back to you. But since we're neighbors, shouldn't we get along well? I don't want the things in my villa to suddenly disappear one day. That's not necessarily true, said Yang Lu with a ruminating expression. If you let me know that you're the kind of rich but heartless person who earns ill-gotten wealth, maybe your things will really disappear. I won't take advantage of others, nor will I take others' things. Tan Xiu said with a smile. But if anyone dares to touch my things, I don't mind cutting off his hands and making him lose the ability to eat. Yang Lu squinted his eyes as he watched Tan Xiu's back walking outside. Suddenly, his pace quickened as he used a peculiar footwork and lightning speed to strike Tan Xiu's back. He was confident in his own skill. In his opinion, even though he only used 30 to 40% of his strength, he could still hit Tan Xiu. Whoosh! A figure flashed as Tan Xiu's figure appeared half a meter away out of thin air. What? Yang Li's complexion drastically changed. His eyesight and speed were several times better than an ordinary person. Yet, he still only felt a blur in front of him as his fist struck empty air. Chapter 5:16. Yang Lu was a disciple of the occult sect and was once a disciple of a martial arts grandmaster. Even if his current strength was still unable to surpass the master, it was still not a problem for him to beat up more than a dozen punks. However, when he launched a sneak attack on Tan Xiu, he found that his strike was actually dodged by the other party. It was as if the other party had eyes behind his back. However, what shocked him the most was not this, but Tan Xiu's speed. Even with his keen eyesight, he still only felt a blur in front of his eyes as his fist missed. Such a result made his heart tremble. You may know a man for a long time, but you don't know his heart. Tan Xiu's footsteps moved and instantly appeared at Yang Li's side. His fingers pierced out and directly sealed several major acupoints on Yang Li's body. Then, he took 2 steps back and stood at the side, shaking his head and sighing. Yang Lu wanted to continue attacking, But as a numb feeling emerged in his body, his eyes instantly widened, and a look of disbelief burst out from his eyes. He desperately exerted his strength, only to find that he had lost control of his body. No matter how much strength he exerted, he couldn't move even a little bit. You? How did you do it? Yang Li's voice was hurried and shrill, and even contained a strong sense of panic. It doesn't matter how I did it. What's important is that I was kind enough to help you put away those things to prevent them from being exposed. Yet you actually sneak attacked me, which really chilled me to the core. It said that thieves also have their own way of doing things. Chivalrous thieves do exist, but you can't be called a chivalrous thief. I'm afraid you're just a petty thief with a little ability. A big hat was directly put on Yang Li's head. Although Tan Xiu knew that Yang Lu was just testing him, he still said something to hit him. Upon hearing it, Yang Lu angrily shouted, "You're not allowed to insult me. I just wanted to measure your strength. Who would have thought that I would really sneak attack you? What's the use of sneak attacking you? That's why I just said that you may know a man for a long time but you don't know his heart. Who knows what wishful thinking you have in your heart?" Tan Xiu said indifferently. "There is a saying that you should have heard before, seeing is believing. I saw you attack me with my own eyes. If I didn't know some martial arts, I'm afraid I would have been punched in the back by you." Yang Lu fell silent. He knew that no matter how he explained, Tan Xiu wouldn't want to hear it. After all, he did launch a sneak attack just now to test whether Tan Xiu knew Kung Fu or not, and whether he was a member of the Strange Doors. After a long while, "What do you want?" asked Yang Lu slowly. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and said, "Apologize to me and compensate me." Yang Lu was taken aback and asked, "Apologizing is not a problem, but how are we going to compensate?" Tan Xiu said, "Apologize first, and then I'll tell you." Yang Lu nodded and said, "Brother Tan Xiu, I was wrong just now. I apologize to you. I hope you can forgive me for my rudeness." Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. He approached Yang Lu and unsealed his acupoints lightning fast. As he turned around and walked outside, he said indifferently, "I'll return the tools in your box to you later. But the gold, silver, jewelry, cash, and diamonds inside will be my compensation." Fuck. Yang Lu, who had just regained his mobility, moved his hands and feet a few times. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, his body slightly stiffened. Looking at Tan Xiu's back as he walked outside, he cursed and then chased after him with a wry smile. At this moment, he wished he could slap his own big melon seeds. It was just a sneak attack that didn't even touch Tan Xiu's hair, yet his wealth of hundreds of millions was lost just like that? Although he was not short of money and those things were just a small amount to him, he was still very depressed inside. After chasing him, he shouted, "I say, Brother Tan Xiu, you're too black-hearted. I may be a chivalrous bandit, but you're a robber." Tan Xiu glanced at him and sneered, "Those who attacked me before, except for one who was subdued by me, have all turned into corpses. Do you think you can still stand and talk to me if I didn't sense any malice from you? It's just a small amount of money, don't be so hesitant." Yang Lu gulped down his saliva. Although he didn't quite believe Tan Xiu's words, he knew that someone who could have such a terrifying skill was not a good person. "Brother Tan Xiu, who exactly are you?" "I'm a student," answered Tan Xiu. Yang Lu rolled his eyes and snappily said, "If you're a student, then I'm a policeman. But you do seem to be quite young." "That's right. When I saw you just now, I felt that you looked a bit familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen you." Tan Xiu ignored him and went straight back to his villa. He told Yang Lu to wait in the living room downstairs and went to the second floor alone. In the study room, he took out the black suitcase from his interspatial ring. After opening it, he put away the stacks of 100 yuan bills, gold, silver, and jewelry inside, as well as the diamonds. Then, he closed the suitcase and carried it downstairs. "Your stuff." Tan Xiu threw it to him. After accurately catching it, Yang Lu opened it and looked at it a few times. He then nodded and said, "Anyway, thanks. I've returned it to you, so don't randomly smash things again," said Tan Xiu. "Well, it's getting late, so I won't keep you any longer. Go back." Not only did Yang Lu not leave, but he also sat on the sofa in the living room. He put the suitcase aside and smilingly looked at Tan Xiu and said, "Brother Tan Xiu, it's fate that we meet each other. How about having a drink? I also have something I want to ask you. Do you want to know how I made you unable to move?" asked Tan Xiu. "Yeah, I'm really curious." Yang Lu nodded without hesitation. "You have a very powerful skill, but you used a method that I didn't even notice. It made me lose control of my body. I'm really shocked and panic-stricken." Tan Xiu took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it up and took 2 puffs. Then he smilingly said, "I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, so I have a very clear understanding of the human body structure. How many bones, muscles, meridians, and acupoints do you have in your body? I'm very clear about all of these, and I can easily find them. Since you're a member of the occult sect, you should know about the acupoint sealing method." Yes. Yang Lu had already faintly guessed that Tan Xiu might have used the acupoint sealing method, yet he was still shocked by his words. Furthermore, the reason why he asked was that he knew that some people in the occult sect knew the acupoint sealing method, but the effect was definitely not that powerful. After a while, Yang Lu suppressed the shock inside. He rubbed his hands and let out a flattering smile as he said with a smile, "Brother Tan Xiu, this brother has a presumptuous request, but I don't know if you can agree or not." "I can't." Tan Xiu straightforwardly refused. Yang Li's expression turned sluggish as he forced a smile and said, "You haven't heard what I have to say. What I mean is that I'll worship you as my master as long as you're willing to teach me the acupoint sealing technique. It doesn't matter if you don't want to accept me as your disciple. I'm willing to pay to learn it." "I won't accept you as my disciple, there's no doubt about it," said Tan Xiu. "I can pay to learn it, but I don't know how much money you can take out." Yang Lu stretched out a finger and said with all seriousness, 100 million. Tan Xiu pointed to the door and said, "The door is over there. I won't send you off." With a strange expression, Yang Lu said, "Brother Tan Xiu, you don't need to rip me off like this, do you? Even though I managed to steal all of my master's wealth before he passed away, 100 million should be quite a lot, right? You just robbed me of hundreds of millions of wealth." Tan Xiu shrugged and chuckled, "Since you already know that I can casually rob hundreds of millions of wealth, do you think I'll still care about the 100 million tuition fee? You must know that if you want to learn the acupoint sealing technique, you must practice a cultivation technique. I happen to know a cultivation technique that can be practiced. If you learn it, not only will you be able to seal acupoints, it will also make your strength soar." 100 million? What a joke. Cultivation technique? Yang Lu was startled and hurriedly asked, "The cultivation technique you mentioned, is it the legendary internal energy cultivation technique?" Tan Xiu shook his head and then nodded, saying, "It's a kind of internal energy cultivation technique, but it's more powerful than ordinary internal energy cultivation techniques." Yang Li's complexion changed. He stared at Tan Xiu for half a minute and then solemnly said, 5 billion. This is all the wealth I can take out in a short time." Tan Xiu got up and walked toward the stairs as he lightly said, "No matter how much money you have, it doesn't mean anything to me. Don't bother me if you don't have 10 billion. You can go now. I don't want to say it for the 3rd time." 10 billion? Yang Lu jumped up from the sofa with disbelief in his eyes. He had seen people who were greedy, but he had never seen such a ruthless person. Although he just said that his wealth was only 5 billion was a lie. He absolutely didn't have a wealth of more than 10 billion. Even the total wealth he had was less than 1/3 of 10 billion. Is this forcing me to do more good deeds and share the burden of those who have obtained ill-gotten wealth? Yang Lu thought indignantly. However, he knew himself very well. If one day he could really get 10 billion, would he still use such a huge amount of wealth to learn acupoint sealing art from Tan Xiu? With such a sum of money, he would directly wash his hands of the world and enjoy a good life later. Tan Xiu returned to the 2nd floor and looked at Yang Lu, who had just left the house. A smile outlined on the corner of his mouth. He felt that Yang Lu was a very interesting young man. He knew the sect master of the thief sect when he was in the immortal world, and if the sect master of the thief sect hadn't offended a formidable enemy and been pursued to death when he just reached the perfected golden immortal realm, he would probably have become a supreme exalt in the immortal world in the future. If he can really get 10 billion, it means that he does have some ability. It's not impossible to accept him as a disciple at that time. Tan Xiu thought silently with a smile. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.